Hey everybody, welcome back. This is D&J's Epic Quest. This is Derek and
This is Justin. How you doing, man?
doing pretty good. It's felt like it's been a while since we've talked.
It does, yeah. It does feel like it's been a while, but when was it even last time we recorded? It was last week, right? Last Thursday, maybe?
Oh yeah. It was last Thursday and then Saturday we were with Mora, right? Was that
Y-
last week?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, it's been a holy crap. This week has gone by real quick or real slow. Um, yeah. Okay, cool. I could have sworn that we did the Mora thing 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's time's been kind of flowing kind of weird, I guess.
Yeah. It might have something to do with this obnoxiously long summaries we've had to do.
This one was a bear for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What I guess what else has been new? How's your hockey going?
Pretty good. We had a game this morning. We won 1-0. Each team, so our team, we had six skaters, and the other team had six skaters. So you had one extra player on the bench to switch out with.
Oh
Uh,
geez.
so it was a grind, but we pulled out the win, and yeah, I think we won 3 in a row now.
Dude, that's
So
amazing.
we're doing pretty good.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Hopefully that keeps up.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a fun season so far. I don't even know how many games we played. We got to be probably around the 15-ish mark, somewhere around there.
Gotcha. Um, well, I feel like we forgot to mention it in a episode or two ago, but I believe that it was either last episode or the episode before that where we surpassed 30 episodes.
Oh, damn, did we? I
Yeah,
guess I didn't even really remember that. But yeah, that's awesome. That's
that
a
is
it's a milestone.
it is a milestone. I mean, 30 episodes, that's pretty. I mean, granted, two of those are our side quests, so to speak.
Well, they still
But
count.
well, right, yeah, but it's still monumental and phenomenal. I was excited when I realized that, and I don't know why we didn't realize it in that moment, but hey, it's great. We love it.
So what, this is like 32 then?
I think this is episode 32. Yeah,
Sweet. That's
32 or
cool.
33. I'm uncertain at this point, and I think a lot of it has to do with the schedule as to which we release episodes. We're technically two ahead of what we release. So
Right. Yeah,
by
so
the
this will be what, probably 2 weeks or so till this one comes out, roughly.
right, yep. Well, actually, we're an episode ahead. We're always one episode ahead. So yeah, you're right, 2 weeks. So by the time that all of you lovely followers are listening to this, we will probably be recording chapter 4 by the time this releases.
And that'll be like the week of Thanksgiving.
Right. So maybe not. I know that we're planning on going out to Pittsburgh to see the lady's family. So
Oh, sweet, man.
yeah.
I've been out there one time and I loved it. I would love to go back again for anything. I like the town a lot. It was a really cool town.
Yeah, it was really interesting. The last time that I went. So yeah, it'll well not yeah, it'll be fun.
Are you guys driving
Oh yeah,
or
because
flying?
it's way cheaper. Yeah,
I guess I
because
don't know if there's really a good way to fly into Pittsburgh.
no, not really. But that's okay. Take the kids on a cross country road trip.
Well, me and my dad did it in like 14 hours,
Yeah,
13, 14 hours.
that's about how
So
long it took us to get there.
it's probably going to be different with kids, though, I imagine.
Um, it wasn't too bad last time, so yeah, who knows?
Sweet. Well, have fun, man.
Yeah, I will. So I doubt we'll be recording that week because I won't have my recording equipment, but I would imagine as soon as I get back, we can arrange something.
You can't make Danny drive and you can just record on the road.
I do not want to use my hotspot for that. With a bunch of kids in the car. Dad.
That would be chaos.
Yeah, it would be chaos. I mean, I love my kids to death, but you know, it would not be an ideal situation. But
No, no, I don't. I would want to do it either.
plus, it'll give us some time to just bond while we ride board through the East Coast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we've got a lot ahead of us. Should we kick off our third episode in our second season of Deadhouse Gates from the Malazan Books of the Fallen?
Sure. I'll take the epigraph here.
Sweet.
To this day, it remains easy to ignore the fact that the Aaron High Command was rife with treachery, dissension, rivalry, and malice. The assertion that the Aaron High Command was ignorant to the undercurrents in the countryside is, at best, naive, at worst, cynical in the extreme.
I feel like based on the first section, I can understand what this epigraph is hinting at.
I'll have to. I don't. I'll have to think about it as we go because I know I always read the epigraph, but sometimes they kind of get lost along the way just with everything else for me in the chapter. So
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And before we begin, I guess want a quick shout out to all of our followers, um, particularly YouTube. You guys have been very, very vocal, which we appreciate wholeheartedly. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the likes. We appreciate it all.
yeah, definitely. You kind of run the YouTube stuff, so it's been exciting to when you send me screenshots of stuff from that. I like seeing that.
Yeah, so keep it up, guys. We'd love to hear from you. And correction, this is chapter 2 from Deadhouse Gates. I think I said chapter 3, but it is our third episode, but the second chapter of Deadhouse Gates.
No worries, man.
Cool. Well, I just want to preface before I begin that this section is probably going to take me some time. So I know that in previous episodes I talked about grabbing popcorn, and while I was semi lighthearted about that, like I'm dead serious now. Grab some
Yeah, you could
popcorn.
maybe go plant some corn quick, and it'll be ready to harvest by the time Justin's done with this, and you can still have time to make your own popcorn.
Exactly. Um, all right, here we go. This is the first section from the second chapter of Deadhouse Gates. It's fucking raining, and Duiker watched the unseasonal rain wash away a red handprint that had been on the outer wall of the old Falad palace in the heart of Hisar. Such patterns and symbols formed dialogue to which no Malazan could understand. Every wall in every city, a scroll for secret code. His warnings of ignorance have fallen upon deaf ears to those in the Malazan High Command. Duiker pulls his cowl of his Talaba cloak over his head and continues his journey. Duiker walks this empty street on the boulevard of broken dreams. Eventually, Duiker notices that the carriage path becomes a muddy path of wheel tracks, and the once tall royal nut trees give way to desert shrubs. The change was so abrupt that Duiker found himself standing shin deep in some Duiker/sheet. Shit. Off to the left, unclear behind the falling rain, was the Imperial compound. On his right, he noticed the traders' camp, a knot of hide tents with horses, camels, and carts. The sound of the rain obscured Duiker's approach from the camp's dogs, and he eventually came upon an intersection between the hide tents. Across from him was a copper-colored tent with its walls covered in symbols. Duiker approaches this tent, hesitates a moment, and then draws the flap open to enter inside. A roar of sound and hot steam-filled air hit Duiker as he stepped inside. Taking a moment to shake the water from his cloak, Duiker took in the scene that surrounded him, finally catching sight of a tapu weaving through the crowd. Duiker calls the tapu over, and as the tapu hawker quickly approaches, exclaiming that it's a goat and not a dog, Duiker utilizes his linguistic skills to speak to the man in the language of the Dosai. After a few lines of dialogue, Duiker pays for the meat and as he does, brings up the Mesla, to which the Tapu tells Duiker to beware the Mesla as they have spies and that their words could be easily twisted. Duiker responds quite hastily to the Mesla. Words are their only language, and asks the Tapu if it's true that they have a scarred barbarian commanding them. Before leaving, the Tapu tells Duiker that even the Mesla are afraid of him, and he's a man with a demon's face. This is the barbarian commanding him, is what the Tapu is referencing. Encompassed in Seven Cities philosophy was that every meal was your last. So in local fashion, Duiker ate quickly and messily. Finishing, he dropped some leaves on the floor and then used a now outlawed gesture of gratitude to a Falad whose bones were rotting in the mud of the Hisar Bay. Wiping his hands off, he sees a large crowd gathering and heads towards it. The gathering marked the circle of seasons where two seers faced one another and spoke symbolic languages of divination in a complicated dance of gestures. Duiker saw the two seers, one an ancient shaman from the Semp tribe, further inland, and the other a young boy who had no eyes and a severe stage of malnutrition. Instinctively, Duiker knew that the young boy's parents had died during the Malazan conquest. The onlookers were tense and they were quiet, which told the historian that there was power in this divination. The two seers danced around, doing their best to stay facing each other. Both had their hands held out, inscribing patterns in the air. Duiker nudges the guy next to him and asks what he's missed. The man tells Duiker that it was none other than the spirit of Dryjana. Duiker wished he could have seen that and continued to watch both seers trace an invisible figure with their hands. The figure slowly becoming more clear, whose flesh was fire. The boy's head flew back, and words started coming from his throat. Two fountains of raging blood. Face to face, the blood is the same. The two are the same, and salty waves shall wash the shores of Raraku. The holy desert remembers its past. The apparition vanished, and the boy toppled to the ground. The boy was dead, rejoined with his family, a gift from the mercy of Dryjana. A shaken Duiker slowly pulled away from the ring. He sensed someone watching him. Duiker looked around and noticed a figure wearing a goat's head, and the hood was pulled up so their face was lost in shadow. The figure looked away from Duiker, and Duiker bolted for the entrance flap. As Duiker steps outside, he breathes in the cool air. Wrapping his cloak around him, Duiker thinks to himself about the present, always trying to conquer the past, and if the Empress had sent Coltane to do just that. Had she abandoned Coltane like Duiker advised Malik Rel, or had the Empress just been waiting and holding Coltane back to be honed in for a specific task? Duiker left the encampment, and straight ahead loomed the gates of the Imperial compound. He thought to himself that he might get some answers to his questions, as he will be face to face with Coltane. Duiker approached the guards, but the guard had mistaken him for someone else. Duiker removes his cloak and reveals the Imperial diadem to the guards. The guards apologetically said that they had not realized that Duiker was with the other one. Duiker is like, "Who are you talking about?" All the guards could say was that he had come just a few moments before Duiker arrived. Duiker observed the muddy footprints of what appeared to be someone bow-legged as he made his way through the compound to the council room. Duiker entered the low-ceilinged council room and noticed Malik Rel, Culp, Coltane, and another Wiccan officer were already inside. Malik Rel raised an eyebrow as if surprised by Duiker's presence. Duiker questions Coltane's motivations by this and chalks it up to inexperience. Malik Rel and Culp didn't seem like they could get comfortable, as the chairs had been removed from the tables. Duiker hangs his sopping wet cloak and then turns to face Coltane and his Wiccan officer, who were standing at the nearest edge of the table. Duiker introduces himself and welcomes Coltane and the Wiccan officer. All that Coltane could say was of the last time Coltane had seen Duiker. Duiker had lain in the Emperor's own cot, with fever about to rise, and walk through Hood's gate. After pausing, Coltane goes on to explain that it was Bolt, the Wiccan officer standing next to him, that had ripped Duiker open with his lance, and then a soldier named Dujek kissed his sword to Bolt's face. Coltane, while smiling, turns to Bolt. Bolt stares concentrated on Duiker, but then swells his chest and explains that he remembers an unarmed man, as the lack of weapons had brought his lance into action. He remembers Dujek's sword taking his beauty with Dujek's sword meeting Bolt's face, and Bolt's horse bit Dujek's arm, crushing the bone inside. Bolt continues his sob story as Dujek lost his arm, but it was Bolt that fared the worst, as he lost his beauty, and the result was that he had only one wife. Smiling, Coltane chimes in and asks if Bolt's wife wasn't his sister. Bolt admits that she is, but also says that his wife/sister is blind. Duiker watched as both Wiccans became silent, one scowling and the other frowning. He heard Culp make some grunts in the background. Duiker smartly says that he does not recall seeing either Wiccan at the battle, and states that Duiker himself had not noticed the loss of beauty in Bolt. Bolt says that this is true, as one needs to really look close. Aslick Rel interjects and asks Coltane if they can move, as it seems like there has been enough pleasantries. Coltane rejects the little bitch's request, without even taking his eyes off of Duiker. Bolt asks Duiker why he entered a battle without weapons. Duiker responds by saying that perhaps he had lost his weapons in the battle. Bolt denies this and explains that Duiker had no belt, scabbard, and carried no shield. Shrugging, Duiker explains that if he is to record the events of the battle, he must be in the midst of it. Bolt has some concerns about Duiker's reckless way of recording battles, especially during Coltane's reign as Fist. Duiker dispels this concern by explaining that he is not as brave as he used to be, and now he wears armor and a short sword and a shield when documenting battles. Bolt simply tells Duiker that the years have brought Duiker wisdom. Duiker says that in some things, yes, but others not enough. Duiker then turns to Coltane and tells him that he would be bold enough to advise Coltane at this council. Coltane's attention is diverted as Aslick Rel interjects his thoughts on Duiker advising the new fist. Duiker responds to Aslick, stating he knew little information. Rel interjects again to ask if the council has started. Coltane simply says that they have not, because they are waiting for his warlock to arrive. Duiker's throat suddenly became dry, as he explained to Coltane that Empress Lucine commanded that all Wiccan warlocks were to be rooted out. Bolt kind of steps in and explains that the warlocks were hung from iron poles as crows came to collect their souls. They had brought their children to look upon the dead elders as a way of keeping the memory alive, as emotional scars, so to speak. Looking at Coltane in disbelief, he explains that the Empress they served did this. Bolt interjects as if he's defensive and explains that the Empress doesn't know their Wiccan culture. The crows that carried the souls were brought back to be reborn again, and the power of their elders was returned to them. A side entrance that Duiker hadn't noticed before now slid open. A tall, bow-legged figure entered the room. A bow-legged figure entered the room. Pulling down the goat-headed cowl, Coltane introduces Sormo Enath, the Wiccan warlock. Culp interjects and is furious because Sormo Enath, an old man, died in Unta, and it took him 11 days of suffering to finally die. Bolt explains that Sormo Enath's soul was too big for a single crow to carry. Each day another crow came, 11 days, 11 crows. Aslick Rel again interjects with a verbal sigh and explains that it was elder sorcery. Sormo Enath starts to speak, and it definitely sounds as if his nuts are about to drop. He carries in his breastbone the memory of an iron spike, and that 11 crows witnessed his birth. He begins to explain that this day he had seen a ritual of divination, and had seen Duiker amongst the crowd. Together it was true they had witnessed a spirit of great power, a spirit that promised Armageddon. Duiker corroborates this claim and explains that there is a trader's camp outside of the city. Aslik Rel questioned Duiker how no one suspected him as Malazan. Sormo explains to Aslik Rel that Duiker spoke the tribal language well and made gestures that announced his hatred for the Empire. Sormo ties this off by asking Duiker if he's ever seen such divinations before. Duiker admits that he hasn't seen anything this obvious, but he has seen other signs to put together that momentum is brewing and that the new year will bring rebellion. Aslik Rel scoffs and says that this was a bold assertion. Rel suggests that the new fish should take heed in caution in these claims, and then begins to talk about the many prophecies of the land, as many as there are people of this land. 7 cities have been promised a rebellion for each year since the Malazan conquest, which is at this point about 9 years. And what has come of them? Scant. Sormo simply states that Rel sounds like he's got hidden motives. Rel's face was a sheet of white, and Duiker found himself holding his breath. Coltane dismisses the warlock's claim, states that all men have hidden claims. The Fist is hearing caution and warning, and this is a good balance for him. He does call out Culp's body language and calls him out for his blatant fear for Coltane, and how the 7th Army follows suit in that fear. In badassery, Coltane said he doesn't give 2 shits what they think, and if they follow his command, he will in turn serve them, and if they do not, well, Coltane will have their hearts ripped from their chests. Finally, addressing Culp to see if he hears these words, Culp was scowling, but confirmed that he had heard. Rel takes this opportunity to inform Coltane that he is there to convey the High Fist's commands. Before he even could finish, Duiker blurts in, before or after the High Fist's official welcome. Rel's response is to indeed deliver Coltane's official welcome from the High Fist, and that the High Fist wishes him well in Coltane's command of the 7th Army. Coltane simply says that he gives no fucks about the 7th's reputation, and that the 7th will be judged based on their action. Rel, at this point, is trembling, and begins to explain to Coltane that he is there to convey High Fist Pormqual's orders. Admiral Nock is to leave Hissar and head to Erin, as soon as the ships have been resupplied. It is Pormqual's wish to review the 7th before their final stationing. Rel then produces a scroll and sets it on the table. Coltane is furious, and his face portrays this emotion. He crosses his arm and then deliberately turns his back on Rel. Bolt cuts in and begins to explain that if Pormqual wanted to review the 7th, he could send High Mage or a Claw that would be as a Pormqual's attendant, as they could use a Warren to inspect the 7th. The Fist has no interest in marching his army 400 leagues for Pormqual to be upset by the dust on their boots. Plus, that would appear as a retreat and would leave these lands unprotected, and these lands cannot be governed behind the walls of Erin. Glaring at Coltane's broad back, Rel whispers to himself that Coltane is defying the High Fist's commands. At this point, Coltane swings around to face Rel and tells him that he is asking for a change in those commands, and now he waits for a reply. Rel says that he will give Coltane a reply. Coltane sneers, but Bolt speaks on the Fist's behalf and explains that Rel isn't even recognized as part of the High Command. Rel, at this point, attempts to defend his position when Bolt states that he is not seen as High Command by Empress Lysine, and that Rel has been hired by Pormqual as his messenger, and he doesn't get to command anybody, not even a lowly cook of the 7th. All Rel could say was that he would convey these sentiments to the High Mage. Bolt says that they are done with him and that he can go. Rel questions this, but Bolt reaffirms again and tells him to get the fuck out. In silence, they watch the priest depart. Duiker tells Coltane that sending Rel away was not a wise decision. Coltane says that it wasn't even him who sent him away. Duiker looks at Bolt, and all he does is grin. Coltane then asks Duiker if he's met Pormqual and if he governs well. Duiker said that he has met him, and as far as he can tell, Pormqual doesn't even govern at all, and that most edicts from Pormqual are issued by the likes that Bolt just expelled. Duiker also explains that there are more behind the curtain as well. Mostly no-born merchants, the imperial occupation is managed by Malazan merchants, a situation that has been unchanged since Pormqual took over 4 years ago. Bolt asks what happened to the previous High Fist. Duiker replies that it was Cartheron Crust who drowned in the Aran harbor. Culp snorts and further explains that Crust could swim drunk through a hurricane, but like his brother Urko, they both drowned and neither body was found. Bolt simply responds by asking what that means. Duiker replies by explaining that both Urko and Crust seem to have shared the same fate to that of Kellenved's other companions, such as Tak the Elder, Amaron. None of their bodies were ever found either. Duiker shrugs and then elaborates that this is all history. Forbidden history, in fact. Bolt chimes back in and says that Duiker is assuming that these people were killed at her command. He begins to explain it from Empress Lucine's perspective, and that it's possible that they all just disappeared and abandoned Lucine, leaving her desperate for able people. He tells Duiker that he forgets that Tak, Crust, Urko, Decem, and others were also her close companions. Imagine her feeling the isolation of abandonment. Bitterly, Duiker retorts that the murder of Kellenved and Dancer was not something she would have thought would affect her friendship with her friends? Question mark. Bolt responds by saying that they were able to conquer, but were they able rulers? Duiker snaps in this response and says that it'll never be known. With a sigh, Bolt makes one more point, and he agrees with Duiker's response, but says that if any could do it, it would have had to have been Lucine, as she was the one closest to the throne. Coltane spits on the ground and says enough of this conversation. He turns his attention to Sarmo, but his question was towards Duiker to record the words that were said here tonight. Duiker says that he will, as he wouldn't be a historian if he didn't document properly. Coltane, still eyes locked on his warlock, again asks Duiker how much influence Rel has over Pormqual. Duiker says that he doesn't know. Coltane commands Duiker to find out. Duiker asks if he means for him to become a spy. Coltane makes a witty remark and tells Duiker that he was in the trader's tent. Duiker explains in order to do so, he would have to go to Aran, and Duiker suspects that after Rel's humiliation tonight, Duiker would not be welcomed into any inner councils, and believes that Rel has marked him as an enemy, and Rel's enemies have a habit of disappearing. Coltane reassures Duiker that he will not disappear and that Duiker will become part of Coltane's staff. Duiker obeys his new command and agrees. Coltane finally says that this council is done. He looks at Sarmo and tells Sarmo to recall his morning's adventures to him later. Duiker grabs his cloak and heads out of the room. Culp is following. As they left, Duiker grabbed Culp's shirt and said that he needed a word with him in private. Culp couldn't agree more. They found a room down the hallway, went in and locked the door. Culp looked at Duiker with a fury in his eyes. He begins to rant that Coltane is an animal, and Bolt, he reads his master's snarling and puts it all into words. Duiker elaborates that Coltane apparently had a lot to say. Culp suspects that Rel may be planning his revenge. Duiker agrees to this, but he's more concerned with Bolt's defense of the Empress. Culp questions if Duiker disagrees with Bolt's argument. Duiker sighs and contemplates that the Empress regrets her actions, but if she did, its relevance is long past. Culp wonders if the Empress has confided in the Wiccans. Duiker explains that Coltane was summoned to the Empress, and Bolt seems to be sewn to Coltane's side, and who knows what exactly took place in the Empress's private chambers. It's clear to Duiker that they were prepared for Malacral, but what of this young warlock? Culp scoffs at hearing the word young, as the boy had an aura of an ancient man. Culp admits that he could smell the ritual drinking of mare's blood, a ritual that marks the time of iron, his last few years of life, the greatest flowering of power. Culp asks Duiker if he saw the dart that Sormo fired at Rel, then stood silent, watching the effect. Duiker is speculative because he recalls Culp's indignation about Sormo being reborn. Culp admits that he didn't want to let on to Sormo how strong his nose is, and if Culp is lucky, Sormo will ignore him. Duiker then asks for Culp's assistance, and Culp asks what the historian needs from him. Duiker begins to explain that he needs Culp to free a prisoner that was sold into slavery and is in the Otatero mines. Culp is speechless and asks Duiker to clarify what he wants a mage to free someone from the mines. Culp gulps and then takes a good look around the room, noticing the things occupied in it. Realizing what chamber this was, he asked if Duiker knew what the chamber was. Duiker says that he does, and it's where the Fist Torlam was found by the Drygeni assassin. Culp asks if their choosing of this room was an accident. Duiker says that he hopes so, and returns to asking if Culp will help. Culp then asks who it is. Duiker responds by saying that he wants Heberic Light Touch freed. Culp says that he needs some time to think about it. Duiker asks what gives him pause, and Culp responds that he doesn't like the thought of another traitorous historian running about. In this particular section, I believe, Derek, you had made a comment about the unseasonal rain.
Yeah, I think about our world, and there's plenty of deserts, and I think of I can't think of the country on the like coast of North Africa along the Mediterranean Sea, but I guess I think of like Egypt too, and they got the Nile River and everything, but I don't feel like we see just monsoon weather on these towns on a coast, coast on one side and then a desert on the other. Sure, they probably get some rain, but nothing that is considered unseasonable. I feel like what's being described is just catastrophic. The amount of rain that's falling to produce shin deep water in the streets of this town has got to be insane. I mean, because I think about, I feel like they talked about like drains in the street a little bit, right? Or am I wrong on that?
I believe that they did.
They
But
maybe mentioned it, but
yeah.
okay, I couldn't remember if I was making making that up or crazy. But I don't feel like that city is probably going to have the infrastructure to deal with that, and that ultimately it's probably not going to have anything to do with the story at all. But that's what I was thinking about when I read that.
Well, I mean, it just whether it was mentioned, the drainage or not, it just you're speaking clearer to how you're imagining things, and I think that that would align with what is being described as well, whether it was mentioned or not. So I think that's it. Just brings so much of a nice visual uh, to this very like juxtaposed, position or location of this continent, right? Like we understand it's very deserty, and for it to kind of be described as like this torrential rain, is a bit off-putting, you know.
It is, and then I just think about, well, this is not my world. I'm just reading about it, so whatever is written and said to have happened, who am I to judge it and try to poke holes in it like that?
Right. But to the locals, I mean, it could very well just be, some type of omen too. There could be mages or people looking into it a bit more closely than others. I guess it's hard to say if that's well, it does say unseasonal, so likely it probably doesn't happen very often, if at all.
Right. Right. It's not like it's just any regular old Tuesday.
Right, right. It's not Washington.
Right.
I thought the whole the secret code stuff that Duiker is kind of noticing, and just every wall within the city is just kind of a scroll of what I imagine would be like, a hidden message that only a certain group of people can read and understand. And I thought it was really cool, a cool way to convey those who are following the year of Dry Jana or rebellion to kind of like communicate with each other. And on top of that, they're totally taking advantage of the weather to essentially erase those messages and continue to create more, you know? I just thought that there was a cool way to describe that.
Yeah, like you said, taking advantage of the weather. The people who know how to read it can read it, but somebody who maybe is trying to crack the code is not going to have the time to
Right,
do that.
right. And especially since, what we know about the seven cities is, Malazan, they have clearly taken over, and at the end of Gardens of the Moon, it's pretty clear that the seven cities are on their brink of rebellion. So I think that's where we are at this point, and these these messages, these secret codes, these you know paintings, so to speak, the to convey messages that are just completely over the Malzan's head. But Duiker, he's catching on. He's wising up to what's happening here, and it doesn't appear that nobody gives a damn as far as Malzan's high command goes.
Yeah, I feel like they must just think it's graffiti or something. Where
Right,
Duiker sees something more to it, he's just kind of told to fuck off, forget about it.
right. Yeah, and it just kind of speaks to Duiker as a character so far, and we'll kind of touch on that a little bit later in this part of this section.
Sure.
But I know that I ruined the his walk from seeing this handprint to essentially kind of where everything as far as the city ends, and now he's essentially shin deep in water. But that transition was just it was so beautifully described, and I by nowhere did it justice with the Green Day song, but I thought it was funny and kind of
And
plays. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I just I had a good chuckle when you read that and when I saw that, and then I know we had talked. I told you that I caught the two references, and you didn't even realize you had a second one.
Nope, nope. Yeah, I was totally trying to make Duiker sound like Dookie, or you know, in that way, shape, or form. And yeah, good catch. I guess that just goes to show I'm not very versed in my Green Day knowledge.
Well, or you are and just didn't know it because you got it.
That's fair. But yeah, it was just so beautifully described, and there's essentially kind of two places that he transitions from where the chapter starts and where he ends up at the trader's track. And it basically is a street called Dryjana's Colonnade, which essentially is like a street that shoots straight through Hisar. Um, it was described as like it shoots through Hisar as an arrow, and there were awnings over shops and they were drooping because of the rain. And like people were hunched into like corners of like the shops that were lining the streets. And, it's described as the streets being completely empty. But then that piece transitions to him walking down what I imagined is like a sidewalk, kind of like a higher estate, maybe more wealthy area. Tall trees that sat in front of estates, but there weren't any fences. And there were multicolored like flowers covering the sidewalk. So I thought that was really cool. It just I could envision it all in my mind.
Did you get? Because I kind of got like what I felt were like Middle Eastern vibes. Maybe this will sound kind of stupid, but I almost was like envisioning like the streets of like Aladdin,
I could
with
see
the
that,
shops and stuff, and
but just with torrential
the
downpour.
desert. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. With a hurricane going on.
Yeah, no, I can envision that. I mean, Aladdin, that's a great visual. But also, going back to the Wheel of Time, like we always do, again, kind of some of the settings in the Aiel Waste. Yeah,
I didn't even really think about that.
yeah. Just kind of like that deserty, dry, overly hot, kind of barren, but just like a city in there. And then
Ru-
as he's walking, it just a sudden transition from city to like desert, scrubs kind of hanging out and poking out, you know, kind of haphazardly throughout the landscape.
So are you kind of envisioning Ruidine when it was populated?
Kind of, yeah, yeah. I guess that's a good way to kind of make a comparison there.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I thought it was cool when he comes to the copper tent in the traders camp, how it's got all of those symbols, which I'm assuming is a reference to the secret code that or the handprint, the red handprint at the very beginning of the chapter. Because my guess is that if it is some type of dialogue, these symbols of dialogue to which I'm assuming people of the rebellion are using to communicate with each other. My guess is that these symbols, not necessarily the red handprint, but these symbols are correlating to this copper tent. Like that might be a place of safety or like a hideout or you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah.
So I thought, and I think that's why Duiker decides to go in. And as soon as he does, like you can totally envision just this like, almost kind of crowded in type that, are pretty familiar to us as far as fantasy books go. So it just kind of goes to show you the level of detail. Like you can almost hear everything that's happening in there.
Yeah. Just reading it, it felt busy and like there's just lots of things happening.
Right. Yeah, and it's a nice contrast to, where he was coming from. Like he was walking in the rain. All the streets were empty. Everyone's just kind of like huddling and trying to escape being wet to this, dry, smoke-filled, loud inn with people playing games and drinking and there's this like seer kind of not necessarily battle going on, but just people crowded around that, you know.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
I guess it was really really cool as he calls like the Tapu Hawker over. Um this Tapu Hawker, which I'm assuming Tapu is a type of clan within the continent of Seven Cities. I almost for a second when I was reading it thought that that was like the type of goat meat, but I'm leaning more towards a clan at that point. Duiker is dressed um, in that of the Dosai, and he is also speaking with a Dosai accent. And Dosai is apparently some type of island city. So I wasn't able to find that on the map in this book. I didn't check Gardens of the Moon, but I'm confident that I didn't see it there. So my guess is that belongs to some continent that we maybe haven't met yet, so to speak. But I just think it goes to show kind of Duiker as a character. Like he seems to be like super smart, intelligent, wise, kind of cautious a little bit though.
I feel like he is cultured. He's a very cultured man.
Yeah, I would say that that's a good way to describe that. And I'm assuming that, his profession as a historian likely has a lot to do with that wisdom.
For sure. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, I mean, most historians are generally pretty smart people. But I wonder why is this guy? Why is his first instinct to say it's not dog meat and that it's goat? Like, that he must have been accused like, or got caught selling dog in place of goat at some point.
Or it really was dog and he's just putting on a good show.
And that could be too.
Um, I did think, and we'll probably go back to this later in the episode, in when we go through a different section. But I have a theory about what they are talking about when they're talking about the Mesla. So remind me to swing back to that because
Okay.
I think it has something to do with what happens later on in this chapter.
Okay. I will try to remember that. No guarantees.
I'll see if I can maybe uh make a note of it. But
I'll set a calendar reminder.
there you go, there you go. So the other thing that I thought was really interesting and kind of plays a little bit into Duiker's like culturedism that you brought up was he after he finishes his meal, he makes a what was stated a now outlawed gesture of gratitude to a Falad whose bones were rotting in the mud of Hissar Bay. And I'm curious as to what your thoughts are about that.
I was thinking about this, and I feel like he must have just like took a bow or something. I mean, maybe just something as simple as that. I, I I don't know, but I have been thinking about it, and that's it's either that or was he just throwing his middle fingers up or something, finger guns. I don't know.
I feel like I feel like it's a little bit descriptive in the book. I didn't summarize the actual gesture, but I feel like he does something like I guess how similar to like touching the forehead and the chest, kind of like
Oh,
how some Christian like religions do the whole cross thing over their face and chest, you know.
like the Catholic.
Is it Catholic? I don't know. I don't even know.
I'm yeah. I'm not a good Catholic, but I'm Catholic. I don't know what it's called.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like it was some type like that type of a gesture.
Okay.
Um, but I just find it interesting that he would or Erickson would describe this as an outlawed gesture. But you got to remember like where he is. I mean, he's in a very public place. So why is he doing it in a public place? If he knows it's outlawed, then what's the motivation to what I would imagine the intention is to make it very apparent that he's doing this outlawed gesture.
Yeah, it must have been some sort of gesture from that the locals had before the Malazan took over
Right,
because they're yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense because they're going to be the ones to outlaw it. We're like, nope, you're not going to do that anymore.
right. Yeah. And
Maybe it's to show the common people. I'm just kind of thinking of this as we go here, but that he's the only one brave enough to do it. But if these people are seeing him, it kind of lets them know where his loyalties lie.
that's exactly what I'm thinking too. But I guess to make it maybe peel back the onion a little bit, uh, like Shrek's layers, so to speak, is is he doing this just as a guise, or is he doing this to like give people in this trader camp like a false sense of security? Like, is he do it just to like infiltrate? Because I mean, he's the imperial historian, right? So at this moment in time, his loyalties seem to be surrounded to the Empress Lucine, but at the same time, like I guess, it goes back to like I feel like he's playing a game, and some of these things that he does kind of countermand his position, if you know what I mean. And we'll talk more about that as we go through the section here.
I guess I don't really feel that he's loyal to necessarily anybody. He's loyal to his job as a historian and just recording it. So I don't think he's doing it as a guise or to you know gain favor from somebody. I I don't know. I'm not sure how to explain it, but what I'm thinking, just that it feels pretty genuine, I guess, to me.
I agree, but my question is if there were Malazans in this tent, would he be doing it?
That's kind of where I think he's the historian, so almost he's there, yes, but he's kind of separate, like a separate entity in a way.
I guess I see where you're coming
Obviously,
from. Yeah.
I think about Heberick, and obviously they threw him down the shithole. But he also is this gesture as bad as a revised history? Maybe not. So maybe they let it slide. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, this gesture is not calling out Lucine for murder, I guess, to our knowledge, but I just think that, what he is and what he's doing don't align with each other, and that's kind of where my suspicions are being drawn from.
I'm not. I don't know if I have enough information to disagree with you.
Okay, all right.
I,
Well,
I probably wouldn't unless I was like I felt really strongly, and I don't feel super strong. I mean, I certainly have some thoughts, but I don't know if I even fully believe them.
that's
Just
fair.
it's just kind of well, like it could be this, it could be that.
I mean, yeah, there's so many it could be's, and I definitely think that this is something that, like, I know moving forward that I'm gonna kind of, watch like a hawk just to see what it is. I definitely feel like there's something here. I just don't know where it's gonna fall, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess could we talk about this young boy that Duiker is seeing? This dance of seers, so to speak.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
It was really sad, and I feel like this is just one of the nuances of this chapter um, that are just kind of depressing and sad and almost defeatist kind of way, like just a very like a dread hanging over you type of theme so far. And again, we can kind of talk about more of those as we go, but it was said that the young boy that they found, the one who was blind and was severely malnourished, he had been found by the circle organizers, for it's well known that the gods spoke through souls that are suffering. And I thought that this was dark, like really dark, and that the gods have some sick sense of humor, which, yeah, like you mentioned, like really fucked up. And that just adds another level of fucked up on top of it.
Yeah, it's. I think you're right when you say it's sad because it's nobody wants to see a child suffer most of all, and this this kid's emaciated and in the deep stages of malnutrition. I'm pretty sure they said his belly was like bloated out. He was had starved so much. How did he lose his eyes? I guess did some soldier pick him out? There's just a ton of questions there, and then he goes through this convulsion and then dies. I can't imagine any of it's been comfortable, but the majority of his life hasn't been comfortable either, from the sounds of it. And it's pretty sad that him dying is probably the best thing that's happened to him in a long time, and that it's considered merciful. It's just dark and yeah, yeah,
Well, and it was said that it was the spirit of Dryjana, like giving mercy upon the boy, um, which I guess awesome. I mean, it's like putting someone down because they're comatose, and It's just not a life to live as a vegetable, so to speak. Which is sad at the same time, but I guess I get where you're coming from when you say that it's probably the best thing he's had in a while.
Yeah, and I mean, I know he chuckled a little bit, and I don't think you're a bad person because of it, but I didn't mean that as a joke. I mean, it's
Oh,
sad that the mercy he needed was the mercy he didn't really deserve at all. This kid deserved to live a long life and have his parents, and obviously in real life, terrible things happen beyond anybody's control to children and adults all the same. But it definitely hits you different when you see it firsthand, and even just reading about it, this Duiker seeing it firsthand, he's probably seen a lot worse things, but it's just hard when you see this stuff happen to kids.
right. Yeah, exactly.
I think everybody just instantly probably thinks of their own kids. What if it was that was their kid in that position, and it hits you different.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't agree more. Um, but maybe let's move from this depressing topic and talk about this flesh of fire, this the spirit of Dryjana, and her prophecy speaking. What did you think about what she had to say?
I really liked your voice for it.
I tried. I tried.
No, it was good, man. I did like it because I probably would have just read it, but you gave it some flair, so I like that.
I'm getting to the point
Uh,
in the podcast where I'm starting to feel comfortable enough to where the voices will probably come out more. But yeah.
Sweet, I will keep that in mind. Just not really something I thought of doing, but I will try to take a cue from you there.
Um,
I, but as far as the words that were spoken themselves, I guess I don't really know what to think of everything that it's referring to. I guess.
well, I have a little bit of a theory, and it's not like I have a ton to go off of, but I think that because in her or in there, I feel like it was female. I could be wrong. I feel like in their prophecy statement through the young boy here, it goes two flesh or two fountains of raging blood, face to face. The blood is the same. The two are the same, and salty waves shall wash the shores of Raraku. The holy desert remembers its past. So the only other thing that I really have to associate that is Ikarim, right? And I feel like being that the prophecy is saying the blood is the same, the two are the same. I feel the holy desert of Raraku, remembering its past, is going to be intertwined with hopefully Icarium regaining his memories. And like a wave of memory, so shall these two rise again. So I don't know if that means that like he's like for some reason, and this is so abstract, I go to the Mummy, the Scorpion King, where all of like the Anubis warriors are like rising from the desert. I feel like I imagine Icarium once he is all of his memories are flooded back in. It has something to tie with the desert's past.
Okay, I like where that's going. Do you think so? We know Icarium is pretty old, right?
Right. Yeah.
Do you think he was there when Raraku became a desert, when the ocean I guess dried up or whatever happened to it?
Well, that's funny that you bring that up because that almost ties into my next thing that I had pointed out. As Duiker leaves this tent, he has this kind of like internal thought about the past always or the present always trying to conquer the past. And it's said that it Raraku and the Seven Cities used to be like ascendants used to walk on traders' paths, and it basically sounds like this was their home. This is where they created life or built cities, and it's kind of said that these ancient cities live underneath the present sand. As years went on, more cities were essentially built on top of them. So I think that what's going on is it's totally possible that Icarium is potentially some type of ascendant that how for whatever reason potentially maybe lost his ascendancy for some way for some reason that we just don't know yet, and thus the holy desert remembering its past, Icarium regaining his memories, these like lost civilizations rising to defeat, you know, Empress Lucine and its conquest of the seven cities. Because Duiker, knowing history, kind of has again these thoughts of like, well, why is it always the present who's trying to dominate the past? Because that never works, and the past always wins, and really the only way is to become one with the past. So it's just this like really cool. I feel like they're all kind of connected in some way, shape, or form.
I like it. I'll be excited to see. I hope you're right on it. Just
I,
because pick that's not something I would have picked out with Icarium and his memories and the rest of the prophecy on the other side of things. So I like it.
awesome, sweet. But I guess I think that where we'll start is Dujek, right? Like now we know his weird thing with horses.
And we know how he lost his arm
Right. And now we know why his arm could never be the bone found.
because it was infected and nasty and shit.
Well, I mean, all they had to do was take the bone fragments to the eye bone store and have it repaired.
Oh boy. All right, Justin. It's getting late.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm sorry. I won't ever do it again.
No, I hope you do because that was my verbal eye roll, but I enjoyed it.
Oh, sure. Sounds good. That's good. That's good. Okay, well, we'll go with that.
No, I
But
did. That was a total dad joke.
yeah, that's what I do. That's what we do.
Yeah, that was good, man.
But yeah, I thought it was cool that we're getting a character that we're familiar with kind of thrown back in here, maybe to break up maybe the monotony of all of these being new characters as far as this book is concerned. And it's kind of cool that, Dujek's sword basically like fucked up Bolt's face.
Which I guess it sounds like it didn't take much, but
Well, I mean, his wife rather, I would imagine, I guess, she can only feel that something is different about his face, but there's, I would assume that one that is blind maybe doesn't, I don't know, see the same way with their hands or with touch. There's no like, yeah, I guess I don't know how to explain that.
I think it would be hard to feel if somebody is ugly, I guess.
There we
And
go.
it's
I
all
think, yeah, I
it's
think
all
that's where I'm going
subjective,
with that.
but
Yeah, there's no judgments because you're not seeing it.
right. It was a good team effort right there.
Yeah, I love it. Tag team. Go team venture.
Woo!
Um, but yeah, I thought it was funny because along with the Dujek thing, that kind of clarity, we also get a little bit of a small amount of humor. Like Coltane is totally smiling at Bolt when he's bringing up his sister or his wife slash his wife. Um, so small little chuckle there when I read it, but again, the theme of this part of the section is pretty fucked up. Lots of tension, and as we go on and kind of talk about Sormo Nath, like that plays into some of the themes that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah. It's I mean it's just more fucked up stuff in this fucked up world, really.
I mean, it is kind of cool to see or to know that I guess maybe not all historians just jog into battle to record it, but I thought it was pretty ballsy for him to do so. And I guess at the end of the day, I'm glad that he's wiser for it.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no way in hell I would ever do it. I mean, I wouldn't even want to be there all armored up and shit.
Oh no, I
I
would
would.
be shitting my pants.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to fight that way. Fuck that. Forget it.
I feel like the other part of this is Aslick Rel here because
I I really like that name. I want to throw that in quick.
good. I feel like we needed another ass something because we had asshole puppet. So I figured we'd keep it going, like in some way, shape, or form.
That sounds good. We'll carry it through.
Yeah, because like Hairlock, I'm not a fan of Aslick Rel so far, and I would agree with Bolt that there definitely seems to be some hidden intentions here.
Yes, I think so. What they are, I guess I don't really know, but that's why they're hidden, right?
Right. Well, and I mean, Rel even kind of brings up when, Duiker is basically like offering his services to advise Coltane, right? Rel interjects his thoughts and he essentially is kind of he makes a connection that Duiker might tell Coltane something or things that like Rel wouldn't approve of. And I feel like Rel is purely doing this based on what he knows of what's happening in Aaron. And I guess we don't have enough context here, but I think where this is going is, Pormqual is in Aaron. Aslick is essentially telling Coltane that he has to move the Seventh Army, 400 leagues down to Aaron just to be inspected. And Duiker, right, who we know is a historian, we know he's smart. And I'm wondering if maybe there's some type of something, maybe bureaucratically involving history that is happening at Aaron that Rel doesn't want Duiker to be explaining to Coltane, if that makes any fucking sense.
Yeah, something like that could be happening.
And I feel it plays into our epigraph a little bit too. So those are kind of like the two things that I'm like, because in the epigraph it made it sound like there was, something going on within Aaron and the High Council, so to speak.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe there's some turmoil or just some dissension, just maybe some people not happy about things.
Right, right. Well, and we know, kind of at the end of this part, they talk about Urko and Crush. Is it Crush? No, that's not Crush. Crust. Yeah. Urko and Crust, the brothers. I mean, it's essentially explained that they drowned in Aaron's Bay. So I think dissension is probably a good way to put it. I think that there's definitely some things going on there. But I think that I agree with Coltane and Bolt's argument about why travel all the way down there when a warren can be opened by Pormqual's attendants, whether that's a crow or a claw or a high mage of some kind. So
Yeah,
I'm questioning, like, is this even Pormqual's orders or is this Rel just being a little bitch?
it's probably Rel just being an asslick.
Right, right. Um, I guess the other thing that I made a connection here is Sarmo Nath was the one at the traders camp that was watching Duiker because as he's introduced into this group, he's got the goat-headed cowl, which was also described from Duiker's perspective. I don't know if you caught that or not, but
I did not catch that they were one and the same.
yeah, and he's bow-legged because Duiker also observed the mud on the floor and was able to somehow establish that they were bow-legged based on the way that the footprints in the mud were.
Yeah, like the toes must have been pointed out or something. I don't know how he determined that, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess I didn't even think of that. And he was also the one that got to the Imperial compound before Duiker did.
right, yeah, that's kind of what I meant. I didn't tie that together.
Gotcha, gotcha. Um, Another thing that I thought was really cool in this section was, you know, with the Rivy and Tattersail and the soul shifting and all of that thing, all of that stuff that happened in Gardens of the Moon. I thought it was really cool that they gave a little bit more like depth about it. And it is basically a newborn child can become a vessel for soul transferring uh, for a soul that has not crossed Hood's gate. And it was just cool how like just those that like two little quick things just made everything so much clearer as far as like what happened to Tattersail. I mean that's obvious based on the way that it's written, but it's just kind of cool to like have it, said out loud, so to speak.
Yeah, just to get that reaffirmation.
But I think that how I was talking about earlier with Duiker and the outlawed gestures?
Yeah,
Because when Sarmo is explaining to everybody in the room how Duiker spoke the tribal language well and made gestures that announced his hatred for the Empire, I think that's what kind of made me feel or think that he's playing some type of game or that he's like attempting to, blend in and not have the people in this trader's tent none the wiser about who Duiker really is. And that's kind of where, like, is he doing it because he's Malazan, or is he doing it because, like, he kind of believes in the rebellion?
I he must believe in it a little bit, and I feel like I'm kind of flip flopping my stance on him a little bit here, but I don't know. It's so hard. I feel like it's really hard to say, and I just don't know how to defend my lack of a stance here, one way or the other.
Well, I mean, that's totally what it is. I mean, it could go totally either which way, but I just and I mean, this isn't the first instance that we'll see in this chapter, and much less the section where a lot of things that he does and says kind of countermand his position.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way, and it makes him kind of hard to read.
Right, right. That's just like what is his like real true motivations here?
Right.
But yeah, I guess we'll move on to uh Rel kind of reacting to Sormo's explanation of Duiker's behavior, and Rel essentially just kind of he really just tries to make Coltane shrug it off, right? Like, well, ever since the Seven Cities has been conquered by Malazan, it's been promised every year a rebellion, and I mean, again, it's 9 years at this point, so nothing has happened, and so I think Rel is just really Duiker and Rel are kind of not necessarily at each other's throats, but they're like almost arguing in front of each other, and then you've got Culp who interjects his distaste as well, as far as Sormo and him supposedly supposed like to be dead. And then you've got Duiker and Coltane and Bolt. Like there's just so many things that are going on in this section, and it's tension wrought, you know?
Yeah, yeah. There is a lot of it.
It just kind of adds to Duiker's character a little bit because he knows full well how Rel got to where he is, and that was people who got in his way disappeared, right? They disappeared. One can only assume that they're probably dead. But yet he still is doing enough of his like what he's loyal to, which is history, to kind of, overcome those fears. Because I think that in this moment in time, Duiker is definitely saying things carefully, but I think that in the back of his mind, he's also kind of like afraid that he's undermining Rel in this situation, and that could essentially kind of put him on Rel's like shit list, you know?
which is not a great place to be, apparently.
Right. So I think it speaks to Duiker's character a little bit. Like he's definitely got the gall to say what he feels is right.
Which is not always an easy thing to do either.
No, not at all. It's hard to do the right thing when, you feel like you might get killed for it, but you still say what you gotta say.
Right. Yeah.
What did you think
Yeah.
of Sarmo and the Warlocks?
I
And
thought it was uh, interesting, but I wouldn't want to be one of them because I don't want to be impaled and then be reborn because a crow came and snagged my soul.
well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it goes like to me, Sarmo seems like a pretty fucking badass dude. I mean, like he suffered for 11 days, and that was simply because the way that it was explained was that his soul was too big, and that each day a crow had to carry his soul back 11 crows at a time until essentially his rebirth, you know?
Yeah, he sounds like a badass, but I still don't think I'd want to suffer for 11 days like that.
No,
That's yeah, just seems not great.
no, not at all. Yeah. Wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy.
I mean, maybe the worst. They could do that. Well, I just wouldn't want him to be reborn.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I think some of the other things that I thought the crow thing, with Sarmo and the warlocks, I thought that was really cool to kind of hear. As sad as that was, and the whole, bringing the young to look upon as some type of, mental memory of it, so to speak. But another thing that I thought was interesting was when Duiker is explaining the the noble-born merchants, like as far as things that are happening behind the curtains. And it said that they are primarily responsible for cuts on taxation and imports, or taxation on imports, and the corresponding increase in local taxes in whatever export they themselves are engaged in. But here's my question is we know from the prologue that the nobility and nobles are being called starting in Unta, and we can only imagine to other cities. So is nobleborn something where you're no longer nobility but you were just born a noble, kind of like Gano's, how he was born into nobility but then chose to be a soldier? Or is it one of those things where the nobility were given a choice, either culling or servitude? Like, how does anybody remotely related to nobility escape Lycine's current culling? Like, that was the thing that, outside of like the fucked upperiness of what sounds like a very Republican uh, way of going about things with taxation and imports and whatever they're engaged in. Like that was the big thing that I pulled out was the whole noble part of it.
I guess I'm not sure, and it's a hard question. I guess the only thing I really feel like is maybe yeah, there's a difference between nobility and the highborn that are called. Maybe these nobility are just people that were raised up, but they've got a certain amount of wealth and were raised up to be nobles and they're loyal to the scene. Something along those lines. That's about the only thing I can really come up with.
Yeah, I guess it was just one of my questions, and I don't really have anything conclusive to go off of, but I just find it kind of interesting. Um there has to be some type of connection to Lucine in some way, because I can see Lucine doing something like that where they have to choose between being called and sent to work wherever, or essentially serving Lucine in some way, shape, or form. Like I can see her being maniacal about that.
Yeah, I think so. I think I
Um,
could see the same thing.
yeah, yeah. I guess the only other thing that I feel like we should really talk about is basically this whole kind of debate between Duiker and Bolt about the Empress. Like, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that we've got this, Wiccan culture who Empress Lucine sent their greatest warriors, I'm imagining, to die for 9 years. And it doesn't sound like she's relinquished that order, but yet they're still willing to follow her and defend her actions. You know what I mean? Like, Duiker is essentially saying and, speculating and assuming as fact that Lucine had commanded Tak the Elder and Ameron, as well as others, to be killed. And of course, their bodies have never been found either. And I think that he's insinuating that she commanded the previous High Fist that Pormcall took over to die in Aaron, or to drown in Aaron along with his brother. So I just think it's interesting. I don't really understand why Bolt would be defending her. And I mean, he makes a good strong point, because I can see from this perspective, uh, you know, it being played that Lucine, all of her companions, they were once close, like friends almost, or kind of like you would have with like your coworkers, like that coworker type of relationship,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
them just being, or those just abandoning her, and her feeling isolation of abandonment, which then made her desperate for able people. Like, he's throwing this different perspective in it, and Duiker is just like, that's not fucking right, because it's known that she killed Kellenved and Dancer. Did she not think about their relationship with her other friends once she did that? And Bolt just kind of has this kind of half-assed response about, they were able to conquer, but were they able rulers? You know? And Duiker angrily was just like, well, we'll never know. And that's kind of where, at that point, Coltane just, enough of this conversation.
Right. Yeah. Power, or maybe the grasping for power, will do probably make people do things that they wouldn't normally do otherwise. Right.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna take risks you probably wouldn't normally, and do things you wouldn't normally, and even do things to your friends that could very well turn them against you, all in the sake of power. So especially ultimate power, right? I mean, she's the empress of the empire. Like, she doesn't answer to anybody. So I could see where you could get kind of drunk on that, and really just lose sight of your common sense.
So do you think that the Wiccan Coltane and Bolt here are just, they're willing to forgive Lucine's actions for this promise of power and control potentially?
I guess I'm not sure. I don't know if they're drinking the Kool-Aid. Maybe there's just not a better option.
Do you think that on the opposite side of that, do you think that they're just going along so they can fuck her over?
I think it could be very possible.
Yeah. I feel like there's so many different ways that all of this could go. And it's fun to kind of speculate on where things are gonna head, but I don't know. I get
Right.
the I get the feeling based on the severity of which Bolt is defending the Empress, that they're there for her.
Yeah, I mean, for now, anyways.
Right. That's true. But yeah, I guess those are the only things that I had in that second part of this section. I don't know if you I guess the only other thing that I can think of to add is Rel was definitely made to be a little bitch.
Yeah.
Like he definitely got put in his place. You know, like they totally recognize that he's purely just Pormqual's messenger and that's it. Even though Rel seems to have this higher attitude about it.
Yeah, he does seem to have like a high opinion of himself. I think he's probably going to get cut down to size, brought down a couple pegs.
I think so too. I think so too. Um, but yeah, I guess the couple of things that I picked out here were the dart that Culp saw Sormel fired because when Rel is still there before he gets, his verbal ass kicked, so to speak. There was a lot of moments in there where he was described as like nervous or twitching, and it was just funny because I just thought that he was, nervous or had some type of anxiety against Coltane and Bolt, and how kind of like defensive and stoic they were about everything that he had to say, and how dismissive they were towards him. Like they really fucking they shaded him pretty good. And now I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe that had more to do with the dart that Sormo fired, and Culp just kind of like picked up on it.
Right. 'Cause when reading this, I didn't remember. I didn't remember anything about a dart being mentioned up until this point. So I was kind of like, what? But then yeah, thinking about it, where he's acting kind of goofy, it makes sense. There must have been, I don't know. I mean, they didn't poison him enough to kill him, but yeah, is it something that's supposed to take control of him or what?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's like some type of truth serum or what. I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, it could be anything at this point.
Right.
Um, the other thing that I thought was really interesting and really kind of out of place was this Fist Torlam thing. I'm assuming that they were assassinated in this room that Duiker and Culp are now occupying. But I'm wondering if they're like this is some type of omen for them because Torlam is a new name that we haven't heard of before now. And being that Duiker knew what room this was tells me that it has something to do with history and likely potentially circumstances around the Fist's death were similar to like all the others, maybe, or I don't. Yeah, I guess I don't know what to make. I don't know how to make sense of that.
that's that's okay because yeah, I don't know that I've got really any other ideas to help you out.
I mean, it's got to be. I mean, it was put in there for a reason. But again, I feel like it totally would have stood on its own without that like little tidbit of information. So I definitely think that there's some significance there. I don't know what.
It's something I'm sure in time will be revealed. We'll just have to read and find out.
Yeah, right, right. But the only other last thing I have is Culp and his thoughts of not wanting another traitorous historian around. And I don't know, I almost got the sense that Culp is insinuating that Duiker is traitorous as well, or is Culp simply stating his opinion? And if he was, then why wouldn't he question Duiker in his request? And this is what
Uh,
makes me feel like there's so many games that Duiker is playing here. Like we know Heberick is was sent to the slave or sent on the slave ships because he wrote a revised history, and I guess I don't know what I don't know what his game is here.
I don't either, but that was just the way it was worded. Like you said, another traitorous historian. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of there with you. Does he actually think he's traitorous, or
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
you
or
heard everything that he said. I mean, Culp heard everything that, Duiker said in this council meeting. So Culp's loyalties are clearly towards the Malazan Empire. Duiker's is supposedly supposed to as well. And that's just kind of what, yeah, I just, there's something there. I just can't put my finger on it.
well, use your whole fist, Justin.
Damn it. But yeah, I'm curious as to see where Duiker and Heberick go. Like, if they're like supposed to be like the dueling historians in this book, or if they like work together in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so far I feel like that's kind of the storyline I'm probably most excited to see more of. I mean, they're all really interesting and a lot of fun to read, but this one just seems different.
Yeah, I totally
And
agree.
so yeah, I can't wait to find out more on it. I did like Heberick right away. I mean, guy's got no hands now.
He's just got a little stumpies.
Yeah, so I don't know what kind of trouble is he gonna cause. It's not like you're gonna pick up a sword
Right, right. That's
or a pencil or pen or whatever they write with.
um yeah, I guess I don't have any other thoughts for this section. It was long. There was a lot of information, lots of things that we'll probably reference as we continue to read on. But yeah, I just thought it was beautiful. I loved the tension. I love the getting to know of the characters a little bit more. Um, the scenery, the the unseasonal rain, like all of that was just super cool. All the interactions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a hell of a first part of a chapter, considering it took us just short of 2 hours to talk about all of it.
Yeah, a good hour and a half. Good hour and a half. But
Yeah,
yeah, did you have any other thoughts for this particular section?
I feel like there was something on the tip of my tongue, and now I can't think of it.
Uh-oh.
I'll let it stew, and maybe we'll come back to it. We'll see. I don't know. I thought there was something, but yeah, I can't really remember right now. There's just so much stuff. I was trying to remember everything that we've covered. Was there some? Usually, we're both pretty good about, if there's something we want to bring up, we do. So
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe there wasn't anything. I just maybe feel like there is.
I mean, I feel satisfied. I mean, I feel like this section alone could probably warrant, an episode, but for the sake of summarization and kind of condensing everything, I feel satisfied with what we talked about. I feel like there's some theories that are um, being thrown around, and I feel like there's some intentions and some character arcs that we are questioning or aligning, and yeah, and also some really cool information along with kind of keeping that darker theme going on.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty dark. I don't feel like it's as dark as the prologue, but it was still pretty dark, and it certainly had its moments.
Definitely, definitely. And of course, the dark moments only continue.
I think we're gonna get a lot of them in this book.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But okay, that's it. That is literally the first section. That is it. Done.
That's it, huh?
And that's it. Woo! So, hopefully everyone's finished their popcorn.
Their crops have grown. They've collected them
Right. Yes, yes. And now they've made many a
and turned
popcorn.
into popcorn.
Well, whenever you're ready, we're good to go.
Earleton was a holy city and made of white stone shooting up from the harbor, surrounding the harbor on a flat-topped hill known as Genrab. It was thought one of the first cities was buried under Genrab. Legend said it held a throne that wasn't a throne, but a chamber housing a ring of 7 raised daises, each one sanctified by one of the ascendants who found the 7 cities. Earleton was 1,000 years old, but Genrab was believed to be 9,000 years old. A Falad had started a project to honor the ancient city. 10-ton blocks of marble were mined from the quarries, transported by ship to the harbor, pulled through the lower district to the summit. Buildings rose like flowers in Genrab. 3 years later, tunnels collapsed and catastrophe ensued. Buildings destroyed and crushed, and a dust cloud shrouded the sun for days. 30,000 people were killed. The Falad was killed. The only person in his retinue who survived was a cook's helper. This helper blamed himself because he dropped a beaker on the ground moments before the earthquake hit. Feeling overwhelming guilt, he stabbed himself, flooding the ground with his blood. The ground Fiddler now stood on. He watched as a group of red swords scattered peasants on the other side of the round. His heart was pounding out of his chest, and he wondered if anyone could hear it. He was irritated at Kalam for delaying their leave until he contacted his old agent in the city. He heard a curse that translated to Malazan lapdog. The Red Swords were of the 7 cities, but absolutely loyal to the Empress. They had begun their crackdown, or slaughter, of the followers of Dryjana, using sword and lance. Bodies lay on the ground. 2 young girls cowered by a body on the ground a few streets away, and city guard rang alarm that the Red Swords were defying the Fist's rule. Beggars and looters pillaged bodies before they were cold. A pimp snatched the young girls and hobbled down an alley. A few minutes earlier, Fiddler nearly had his head beaten in as he entered the round and found himself staring down a red sword. His instincts took over, and he evaded the attack. The Red Sword moved on to easier prey, beheading a woman trying to drag 2 children out of harm's way. He fought his way through the crowd to get to the alley. The pimp went down. The alley smelled like death and rotting food, but he saw no one. He came to a dead end and saw the pimp with the young girls, his knee pinning the youngest to the ground while he held the other to the wall and tried to get her leggings off. Fiddler said he would buy them and make them wives. The pimp rebuked his offer. Fiddler drew his knife and put it to the pimp's throat, doubling down on it as an offer of mercy. Reluctantly, the pimp agrees. Fiddler took a girl under each arm, not worrying about the pimp trying any funny shit behind him. The older of the 2 was maybe 10 years old. He told her they were safe. He asked if they could walk and show him where they lived. The girl nodded. The younger of the sisters fell asleep in his arms as they made their way towards the girl's home. As they found the street, children erupted and surrounded Fiddler, followed by 3 soldiers. The children scattered to watch from safety. Fiddler says the woman fell to a red sword and a pimp took the girls, but he bought them for 3 jacatas. One of the guards says they found the pimp and he only sold them for 2 jacatas. Fiddler says, yes, that's true. It was 2 to buy and 1 to deliver them unspoiled. It is a fair price. Another man says to pay the price. 100 jacatas would be cheap. They were supposed to be protected, but the Red Sword showed up and they fled. He hoped the Queen of Dreams would bless him and his family for all time. This man was a private guard and Eganton. He wanted Fiddler's name so they could honor him in their prayers. Fiddler was hesitant to give his real name. The man scowled at hearing it, but gave no further comment. Fiddler was invited to dinner. The grandfather wanted to meet his granddaughter's rescuer. He agreed and was led to the back garden, full of stained glass. Fiddler had never seen so much in one place. When he saw the girl's grandfather, he dropped to one knee. The grandfather was a Tano spirit walker. Fiddler, using his best local accent, begged for blessing. But grandfather said he could not bless what he was not, with a laugh, but to join him and the captain in private. We find out the sleeping girl's name is Salal, and she protects herself in her own way. The healer needs to know she needs to be brought back to the world gently. The spirit walker led Fiddler and the captain inside and told them to be seated. He said he was surprised a Malazan spy would risk his cover to save 2 early girls. or children. Did he want to gouge a vulnerable family for information? Fiddler says it's true he is Malazan, but he is no spy. He is disguised to avoid detection from the Malazans. The priest says he is a soldier and a deserter. Fiddler says not by his own choice. The Empress outlawed his unit. The captain said he was a bridge burner, one of One Arm's host. Fiddler acknowledged how well informed he was. The priest says he came to the wrong place if he seeks peace. Fiddler says that he sees that much, and that's why he wants to book passage to Quan Tully as soon as possible. The captain says the Kansu fleet had left Erliton, and there were few trader vessels due to high taxes and such. Fiddler says he was prepared for an overland travel, at least to Aaron. The priest says that's a bad idea, but Fiddler knows this. The Spirit Walker says it's not only fast approaching war, but he must cross the Pan, Patsan, Odhan, and the edge of the holy desert Raraku. From Raraku, the whirlwind of the apocalypse will come, and there will also be a convergence. Fiddler asked if this meant a coming together of ascendant power. The priest said yes, and a gate would draw them together. The prophecy of the path of hands, soul taken, and divers, both drawn to something like moths to a flame. Fiddler wonders why they would have any interest in a Warren's Gate. Neither use magic, at least in any sophisticated sense. The Spirit Walker says he is well versed for a soldier. Fiddler tells him he hasn't spent the last 15 years fighting imperial wars with his eyes closed. He said the Emperor fought both Treach and Riandris outside Liheng, and he was there. The priest tells Fiddler he doesn't have any answer, and he partially believes that the Soul Taken and the Divers don't really even know what they're looking for. It seems like they're acting more on instinct than anything else. He thought maybe it was a way to ascend for whoever emerged victorious, as there were no common ground between the shapeshifters. Fiddler said that ascendancy meant power. Power means control, and should a shapeshifter attain ascendancy, the priest interrupted and said it would mean dominance of its own kind, with very real repercussions. The wastelands should never be considered safe, but in the coming months they will be a place of terror and bloodshed. The priest knew this wouldn't stop Fiddler, so he would offer some protection. The captain left, and the priest said, he who would return to the heart of the empire that sentenced him to death, the need must be great. The bridge burners are remembered in the 7 cities, though they are cursed and admired at the same time. They were honorable soldiers fighting in a dishonorable war. The priest said he would like to hear more of the story at some point. Fiddler's eyes went wide. The Spirit Walker's sorcery was sung and required no more effort. Though the Tano were devoted to peace, it was known that the power in their songs was great. Fiddler wondered what this song would do for the company. The priest said such a song had never been attempted before. There is potential in a Tano song for ascendancy, but could a whole regiment ascend? A worthy question for an answer, Fiddler said. If he had the time, he would give an answer. The priest said it would only take a moment. Fiddler didn't understand. He wanted to know Fiddler's past, and this scared Fiddler. The priest asked if he thought he would not protect his secrets. Fiddler isn't worried about that, but the fact he knew would endanger his life. He and all his memories were not honorable. The priest laughed and said if they were all honorable, he would be more deserving of the robe than he was. The captain returned with a chest. The priest said Raraku was once a sea. He held the conch shell and said such things could still be found provided you knew where to look for the ancient shores. Besides the song he sung into it, other songs had been invested. He offered it as a gift for saving his granddaughters. Fiddler gives thanks and asks if the gift offers protection. The Tano priest says, of sorts, but they would not keep him any longer. The captain would see him and that would see him out, and that Kimlock thanked him. The captain said he was the first visitor in 11 years. And did he realize the honor in that? Fiddler said he thought more of his granddaughters than visitors, and his last guest would have been. The captain says it was Dujek One Arm, negotiating the surrender of Kara Karang peacefully, which also happened to be the holy city of Tano. Claimed that he could destroy the Malazan armies, and now he is famous for empty threats. The captain scoffed and said that the Spirit Walker opened the gates to the city because he valued life above all else. He realized Malazan would have what it wanted above all else, and thousands of deaths meant nothing. What it wanted was the city. Fiddler rebutted by asking if it meant bringing the Talan Imas to the holy city to do what it did to Aaron. Then they would have done that, and he doubted Kimlock's magic could have held back the Imas. Fiddler rebutted by asking if that meant bringing the Talan Imas to the holy city to do what it did to Aaron. Then they would have done that, and he doubted Kimlock's magic could have held back the Imas. The captain held the gate open and said that the slaughter at Aaron showed the madness of the Empire. Fiddler, giving some attitude back, said what happened at Aaron was a mistake. There was never a command given to the Logros Talan Imas. The captain told Fiddler to go in peace, and irritated as he was, Fiddler left. So I quite liked this. As dark as it was, especially towards the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of see some of the character of Fiddler. He could have just as easily left these two little girls go to whatever fate would have beheld them. As terrible as it was, being kidnapped, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but taken by a pimp, nearly raped, but he buys them off this guy. He's. I know Fiddler tells him that he buys them cheap, and the pimp's like, "Well, I could make X amount more money off them in a few days." But Fiddler basically threatens to kill this piece of shit and takes the girls for basically, as I take it, pennies on the dollar, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. 2 Jakartas and Mercy.
Which was really, I mean, the right thing to do, rescue these kids, I guess. Do you get the sense that he knew who these kids were before he took them, or no? Because I'm really not sure, but I don't think it matters.
No, I mean, I feel like no, I to answer your question, no, I don't think that he knew who they were prior to because based on some of the events later in the section, I don't think that Kimlock and Fiddler know each other. It doesn't seem like they know each other. Or maybe they do. I guess I'm unsure, but I don't think that they know, because it's been according to Kimlock, it's been 11 years since he's spoken to anybody. That being like Dujek. I guess as far as the bridge burners is what I'm assuming there. And the oldest is 10 years old. So even if they do know each other, which they may or may not, I guess I'm not sure at this point. I don't think that these granddaughters would have been born yet.
Right. And he does ask them. He asks one of the girls to lead him home to their house, their
Right.
home. He doesn't know where they live, so again, I think it's an irrelevant point. It's just a good deed, really. I mean, if I would like to think any person with any semblance of a good heart sees two young children, especially two young girls, being taken by a guy, and they don't belong with them, you're gonna go after them.
Right. Well, and you got to remember that Fiddler and Kalam, as far as we know, they are like this is their hometown, so to speak. Granted, the Seven Cities is a large continent, but I would imagine that they are familiar with these types of characters, these pimps, and kind of know their game. So I think that he was uh, well prepared.
Yeah, well, I know. Was was Fiddler from here also? I know Kalam was, but I guess I wasn't. I didn't remember hearing that Fiddler was.
I believe so. Now you're making me doubt a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that um, both Kalam and Fiddler were from Seven Cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you very well could be right. I definitely remember Kalam, but I'm not 100% sure on Fiddler. Um, One thing when I first read it that I found interesting, hearing of a city that's 9,000 years old. I I like history and shit like that, so I was curious what the oldest city in our world was, and so I googled it quick, and what I found was that Jericho in the West Bank of, I think that would be Israel, is the oldest city in our world, which was founded somewhere between 9600 and 9000 BCE, and we're in 2022, so that'd be like roughly 11,000 years old, right? Somewhere around there.
Damn.
Um, so our oldest city is not terribly far off from the oldest city in this world. But just like those types of things make me think.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool, speaking about the history piece, the way that this section opens up, because the transition between the cook's suicide and Fiddler standing where he killed himself, I could totally see that as some type of movie transition, some type of fancy transition. So I thought it was really cool because, the beginning of the section, you're like, okay, cool. I really like this history thing. And then, out of nowhere, it's just like back to, back to it, I guess, all I can say. And that was really cool to read. I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah,
But it also kind of
I
goes
did.
back to, some of the things that we were informed of in the previous section where history and cities are essentially just kind of like built on top of each other and over and over and over again over the years. So it's totally like plausible that Fiddler is just chilling where this dude, how many years ago, just offed himself because he thought he caused it all. Like that's just yeah.
But I get it, right? Like, I mean, don't you think you would have some survivor's guilt, like if you just watched? Like, I think, like, okay, so 30,000 people is a shitload of people. Mankato is the town we're from is roughly Mankato, North Mankato is about 50,000 people. So if just suddenly like the majority of Mankato just fucking died like out of nowhere and you're the only one left, like I would definitely feel some guilt out of that. Like, what did I do? So I kind of get that.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, you make a good point there. I won't talk about Mankato. Um, I'm me. You're saying this, and I'm like, I'd throw a party. Yeah, no, I get the point you were trying to make. I was just being an asshole.
You're good. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Um, so I'm very glad that you summarized this curse that is roughly translated to Malazan lapdog, but those aren't the words that they actually use. I'm assuming it is some type of language called, and what I'm assuming means Malazan in this language is Mesla. Now, if you remember when Duiker in the traders camp was talking to the goat Tapu, they were talking about Mesla spies. So it means Malazan spies. So in Duiker's and the goat Tapu's conversation, they were talking about Malazan spies. And when you read that, you're like, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. But this kind of ties those two together, if that makes sense.
Interesting. I guess I did not think of that.
Yeah, yeah, because in the traders camp, you're like, okay, they're talking about goat meat and dog and et cetera, et cetera, and then they started talking about some mesla something, and it's just like, okay, all right, okay, I guess I'll just wait. And then and then you read this section, and um what is meant to be a curse is actually the author kind of tying you back to that moment where you finally get an understanding of what mesla and even just a thread of what they're talking about.
It's an interesting point. Should we pick up with this Tano Spirit Walker?
Yeah, I have one, maybe something that we could throw in the between there.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Do you think there's anything to this younger daughter sleeping as a way of protecting herself, as they claim?
I don't know. It
Do you
seemed
think there's
weird, right? Like
seems a little bit out of place?
you
Yeah,
were
like
basically sexually assaulted, and you just like, fuck it, I'm taking a nap.
right, exactly. Like is it just kind of suggests that this isn't the first time,
I did not
or
even think
maybe
of
that's
that.
just over analyzing it, maybe.
You
But
very much, you very well may not be wrong.
like it's not written that these two girls are distraught, you know?
Isn't that
Like
fucked
though
up?
it is really fucked up. And I don't know if that's like I doubt that was his intention, or maybe it was. I don't know, but I mean think about it. The oldest just totally like Fiddler's a stranger to her too. Granted, his intentions were very, very, very distinctively different.
But she doesn't necessarily
But
know that.
right, but at the end of the day, she just completely trusts him and takes him home. But she's not distraught. She's not upset. She just calmly guides him back home. And then the other just falls asleep.
I did not even think of that. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of messed up.
It is a little messed up, but it does kind of sound like there was a healer there to kind of just make sure everything's okay with the girls. So I mean, I'm glad that the scenario that they ended up in was no more than what had happened.
Yeah, I wasn't really prepared to read something like that, and I mean, we get pretty close later on here in the chapter to the same thing, but it, yeah, it's kind of rough. This book definitely has some different themes than the first one for sure.
Yes, it definitely does. But the first one kind of, the theme of that you could, as we talked about with Mora and Evan, not Evan. Was it Mora and Evan, or was it Mora and co-host? I'm forgetting his name at the moment.
Fuck. So am I.
Yeah,
Lee.
shit. Lee, there it is. Or was it with
Sorry, Lee.
Mora and Lee? No, it was with Mora and Evan because she asked about what the Gardens of the Moon meant, and it brought on this. The theme of the book is just like losing innocence, like so many characters losing kind of their innocence or
Yeah.
their childhood, so to speak. So, do you think that maybe that was just kind of like just a way of more or less breaking you in
Man, that's pretty
to
fucking dark if that's what it is. Because, I mean, we're definitely still seeing some of that, but I don't know. That's a question I've thought about a lot. Like, just even the first couple chapters of this book is like, what is the theme of this book? And I'm not sure what it is yet.
if I could give it a theme so far, I would get it like things are so much hitting the fan. It's kind of like you got to dig yourself out before things can get better, kind of the thing. Like you're not even to the point where you can dig yourself out. Like you are still falling.
Yeah, like they're not at rock bottom yet,
Right. Like they're not at rock bottom yet.
but they got to be. It feels like they're pretty fucking close.
It does feel like that, but the intensity so far in these, the prologue in these first two chapters is just so much sadness, and how in what way could you add to a character's loss of innocence, right? Not only continuing that, because for example, Felazin, she was stripped from her nobility, and now she's been forced to do so much in just being chained up and like dragged through these streets where rocks and people are pulling her hair, like hoping her neck cracks. Like, I mean, I would say that that is kind of a continued theme, the loss of innocence, but also it just adds a little bit of an extra whatever on top. Like, there's so much more shit to come, like this is just the beginning.
Right, but I mean, even to go a step further, it's not. I mean, it's definitely sadness, but it's almost acceptance. All these people just kind of accept that this is the way things are, and that's
Yeah.
probably worse.
Yeah, like there's no one questioning the status quo.
Like we're just going along with like this is just how things are, and I don't
Right.
know that I like
Okay.
that.
No, I don't either. And I think that very well could be, something that our characters and the characters that we're eventually introduced to, that is kind of going to be their subconscious battle is this is just the way things are. Well, no, that's not right, you know?
Yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. Because yeah, I I don't think sadness is necessarily the theme of this book, but I'm just not sure what it is yet, and maybe we won't really discover what it is until the end. But
Yeah. And I mean, when I say sadness, I don't mean like my girlfriend broke up with me and I'm going to eat a bucket of ice cream, like and wallow in a hot bath.
but god damn it, I
Yeah.
am gonna do that anyways.
Right, right. I just like the like I don't even know how to describe it. Just that overhanging feeling of dread,
Yeah, that's a good way
you
to put
know.
it.
But yeah, let's should we move on to Fiddler and Kimlock's conversations?
Yeah, Kimlock, because he was, I don't know what I was doing, but yeah, I had a comment that I felt like he kind of was like circle breaker, and I wanted to know what his name was, and we got it. But
Oh, gotcha.
at the time, it felt mysterious to me, I guess. Um,
Yeah. I feel like Erickson does this where he'll introduce a character, but it's not until, the conversation or interaction is nearly done where we get their name,
yeah, it
more often than not.
it just seemed, yeah, it was late in the game, kind of, but yeah, we definitely did get his name. I just, for whatever reason, I didn't really recognize that at the time.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. And, it sounds like he is a Tano spirit walker. And based on some of the smaller pieces of information in the section, kind of seems like Tano is maybe another clan. I kind of got the like another Wheel of Time reference, but it made it sound like the Tuathan or the Tinkers in Wheel of Time, just a very peaceful clan that was rooted out by war. Essentially, is kind of what I gathered. I don't know if you feel the same or any different, but
I did not think of that, but I can get on board with that. I mean, if they're a peaceful people, how much more peaceful can you get than the Tuatha and
yeah, right.
the Way of the Leaf?
The way of the leaf.
But I guess I
Um,
do feel like that they would, the Tano would probably put up a little bit of a fight if push came to shove.
I mean, that's what it sounds like. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not equivalent to each other, but that's just being that they were a peaceful tribe. That's just the first thing that popped into my mind, I guess.
Yeah, I get it. I see where you're going with it. It makes sense to me, and I totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um, I guess what do you make of this Kimlock's, I guess, thoughts about the convergence here, like Fiddler and Kimlock's conversation um, about the convergence, because we get a little bit more information about it, and it kind of seems like it's like a natural instinct for Soul Taken and Divers to just seek out this gate in the middle of the pan pots and Odin.
I guess I don't really know. The one thing that I really, and I've still been thinking about it, is they talk about the peaceful surrender of Karakarang, if I'm saying that correctly, which is the city where the Tano are. And these people are peaceful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they're talking about the surrender of it, it must have been under siege or in some sort of scrap, and they were defending themselves, right?
Right.
Which kind of goes
Yeah, and
against that peacefulness. Um, that's what I've been thinking a lot about.
well, I think that because I know that like they talk about a lot of battles and the past with Karakarang, and Li Heng was also brought up with Treach and Relanderus. And I think that, and even Aaron too, I think that what they are referring to is when Empress Lysine first conquested um, the seven cities. So I think that this is what they're kind of referring to. And I know at the end, Fiddler is, a little bit frustrated with or irritated rather, some of the things that were talked about. You're basically saying that what happened in Aaron was a mistake, Um, it just kind of sounds like miscues or unfortunate events. And I feel like that stems back to Empress Lysine's inexperience. And so now it seems like something has happened that shouldn't have gone the way it went. And maybe there's some animosity and tensions towards one group or another. Granted, we don't have a ton of details as to what specifically those things are, but I think that that's kind of where this is headed, if that makes any sense.
I think so, yeah.
And now that, current place, right? It sounds like from Fiddler and Kimlock's conversation, it kind of sounds like, God, I always forget their name. The blah, 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 blah.
Shaik. Oh, the yeah, the religious. I think the Shaik is like a fucking like like a pope that's hell bent on killing people. That's kind of how I feel.
Gotcha.
Like the
Um,
Shaik is just the leader for the fucking crusades.
I guess all that's going over my head.
Yeah, I probably don't really know what I'm talking about either, so don't worry about it.
Derek. Yeah, but I guess going back to my point, it sounds like I'm on top of Divers and Soul Taken, the Convergence. It's kind of made it seems like the Shaik, whoever this is or whatever the clan may be. I guess we don't really know at this point. It kind of sounds like they're all drawn to this. And I think that if I had to predict, I feel like the Shaik, they are the ones who kind of take down the Divers and the Soul Taken and reach ascendancy. How else are they going to overcome the Malazan Empire?
I felt
Right?
like
Like I think this is
go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead and finish your thought. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I just think that this is what their goal would be so that they can I guess free the seven cities from Malazan conquest.
I felt like the Shaik is a singular person. Like
I'm leaning that way too.
the Sheik must be the like a leader of whatever group. That's their title, but it's one person.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're on the same
yeah,
page there. Okay.
yeah. I'm definitely leaning towards one person. I feel like that is probably the name of somebody. But yeah, it kind of seems like this is where it's headed, and on top of this conversation, there's also a huge warning that Kimlock gives Fiddler, like, because of all this, it's probably not a good idea just to walk straight through, you know, which I also feel is probably going to be something. And we also know Mappo and Icarium are in this area, because that's where they were in chapter 1. They already had met with Rylandris, and it's kind of funny how Fiddler confirms Li Heng, which Mappo and Icarium had a hard time remembering which city, they had fought, or Rylandris had fought Treach in. It seems like there's a lot of history being thrown at us. History that we can't even really make sense. Oh, I think I may. Okay, so I think that the theme on top of maybe dread is really just about history, because I feel like it comes up so much. Like, do not ignore one's past because it will fuck with you in the future.
That's a really good point. Now, as I'm reading going forward, I will think about that.
Yeah. But it's kind of like, even in this section, they're talking about current events, but there's also some conversation about, previous things that have happened. Um, even with like Treach and Rylanderus, the 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 battles in Aaron, and even the bridge burners, right? Like, some people respect them, some don't at all. Um, yeah, it's there's a lot of conflicting things going on that I've noticed and have picked up so far.
I always enjoy the bits and pieces you pick up and think about.
I try.
You do a good
I
job.
really, really try. Thanks. Um, I guess the only other thing that I can think of is what are your thoughts on this conch shell?
I don't really know. Um, what's kind of drawn more of my interest is how strong Kimlock must be if he if Fiddler doubted that he could hold the Talanimus at bay if they attacked. I mean, we know the IMS are pretty strong, right? But
Right.
if
Yeah.
if Kimlock could maybe put up a little bit of a fight against him, he must be pretty strong too. But the conch shell, it is interesting, where they say that the song could provide ascendancy, but could it, God, how do I word it? Could a whole unit ascend to, being demigods or whatever? Like that seems like a pretty big stretch, don't you think?
I mean, it does, but I feel like this whole song thing came out of nowhere, and I guess I don't know what to make of it. Like like a song of like spells and sorcery, or like, how can a song bring someone to ascend?
I don't know, but he's obviously got some power. But if he's just choosing not to, I don't know. I feel like he could maybe use it in different ways to be to maybe be more effective. For he could probably influence things more to whichever way he wanted if he chose to.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, why would if Kimlock could make a difference, why wouldn't he?
I guess I'm not sure. That's just the fucking hard thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. That is the hard part. I mean, maybe it's just because, Spirit Walker, right? Like, maybe he's able to, walk amongst the dead of seven cities, right? I mean, again, that seems to be a thing where in order to beat the past, you kind of have to join them, you know, uh, based on what some of Duiker is was talking about. And I don't know. I mean, I'm looking up right now like the meaning of a conch shell, and I guess some believe they represent the safe journey between the physical and spiritual world.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I feel like while Kimlock couldn't specifically answer Fiddler about giving Fiddler protection, it, that very well what it could do is just kind of keep him safe from both real and undead as they make their journey through the Pan Pots and Odan, which I'm assuming is what's going to happen.
I had a thought, and I kind of lost it.
Uh-oh.
I, I kind of feel like Kimlock is maybe just hoping to kind of fly under the radar, and maybe that's why he's not in. If he's got the power to influence things, why he's not. He's kind of hoping things blow over, and hoping maybe everybody's overreacting, and it's not going to get as bad as these prophecies and everything else are saying it's going to be. He just wants to see his granddaughters grow older and grow up and have a good life, right?
Right.
That's kind of what I feel.
But I mean, but maybe the whole song thing really doesn't, maybe it's dependent upon something, right? Because, like, it's almost like Kimlock asks permission. Like, in order to proceed, he had to touch Fiddler. But as you recall, Fiddler just totally, like, shot him down. So maybe that's the holdup here. So maybe it's just alluring to something that we'll read in this book or in the future. I guess I mean those are the only two things that I can think of that are somewhat related. I very well could be way off about that, but you know, yeah,
Yeah, it's just. I mean, there could be a million different things, right?
right, absolutely. I mean, I guess overall, I really enjoyed this section. It was a little sad, uh, a little depressing, but
That's an understatement. It was pretty goddamn dark,
mhm,
and we got a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel there, but thanks to Fiddler playing the hero, I mean, if he wasn't there, these fucking poor kids would have been raped and turned into whores at
right,
you know
yeah,
10 and single digit age numbers. I mean, yeah, it's hard to think about.
oh, right. I mean, and it hits home because my children are pretty much those ages.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It makes you think. I mean, it puts things in a whole different perspective. You think, like, well, what if these were my kids? For sure, totally. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess I feel like we're looking for things to tie together, and I don't know if we have all the information to tie.
You ready to move on?
I'm ready if you are.
Yeah, buddy, take it away.
Moby squealed in delight as Fiddler entered the threshold. Fiddler pushed Moby away from his attempt at a throat-crushing entrance, or crushing embrace. This reminded me of facehuggers a bit. Kalam says that he was starting to get worried and asked if Fiddler ran into trouble. Fiddler just shrugs at this and asks where the others were. Kalam tells him that they are in the garden. Fiddler walks towards Kalam, stopping to put his conch shell into his backpack before joining Kalam at the table. Filling their cups with watered down wine, Kalam asks Fiddler, well? Fiddler explained that walls are covered in symbols, and he guesses that within a week the streets will turn red. Kalam says that they have horses, supplies, and mules, and that they'd be nearing the Odin by then. Safer out there. Fiddler takes a moment to observe Kalam before responding. Maybe, maybe not. Kalam asks about the hands on the walls. Fiddler asks if he noticed them. Kalam goes on to explain that he sees symbols of insurrection aplenty, meeting places announced, rituals of Dryjana advertised. Kalam could read that as well as any other native. But those unhuman handprints are something else. Kalam leans closer and says they seem to indicate a direction south. Fiddler tells Kalam it's a convergence in Pan, Pots, and Odin. Kalam tells Fiddler that this is a rumor he has not heard yet. Fiddler says to Kalam that it's Kimlock's belief. Cursing Kimlock's name, Kalam asks if he's in the Holy City. All Fiddler could say was, so it's said. Fiddler holds back his adventures and his meeting with Kimlock as it would send Kalam running out through the door, and Kimlock to Hood's Gate along with his family and his guards. Another gift to Kimlock, Fiddler's silence. Footsteps are heard as Crocus complains about how dark it is in here. Fiddler uncontrollably asks Crocus where Apsalar was. Crocus snaps and responds by saying that she was in the garden, and where else the fuck would she be? Fiddler was triggered as thoughts about Apsalar not being around was because when she wasn't, there was always some kind of trouble. If the patron of assassins decided to use Apsalar again, they would all have a knife to their throats. Crocus pulls up a chair, grabs a cup of wine, and asks when they will be leaving. If we are to cross this damned land, let's get to it already. It smells, there's rats, and it feels like he's sharing a snowsuit with two other people. It's fucking hot, and we'll catch a plague if we stay here any longer. Kalam says that they hope it's Blue Tongue. Crocus is like, what the fuck is that? Fiddler explains that your tongue turns blue and swells up. Crocus goes, so what? Fiddler says, well, then you wouldn't be able to talk. I like how it ended on some humor.
I like that too. You can't talk. You'll be able to shut the hell up.
Yeah. So my first thing here is I like how it kind of seems like there's a little bit of tension between Kalam and Fiddler. It doesn't seem like they're buddy in this moment, even though they are like friends. It just seems like maybe being back in the Seven Cities is kind of just like a weight on them. And I can only imagine, right? Like they don't want to be caught. They're disguised. They're wearing different things. They're, being secretive, and like I feel like they're not themselves when Fiddler walks in. I don't know if you did you pick up on that at all?
Yeah, it's got to be a big stressor for sure.
I'm very convinced that based on Kalam's reaction to hearing Kimlock's name, that there is clearly some history between Kimlock and Kalam.
Oh,
and my guess,
yeah, for sure.
Right, yeah.
Why else would he keep it a secret? Like something had to have happened.
And this is kind of what I believe. I know that in the previous section we were being a bit evasive on this. I do think that Kimlock and Fiddler are aware of each other, but maybe have never met before, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And Fiddler was around to witness whatever came between the two of them. At least hear Kalam bitch about Kimlock. But I'm guessing it has something to do when Kalam was chasing Quick Ben through Raraku. But that's the only thing we really have about one of Kalam's visits here. In the first chapter after they take out the Soul Taken. I already forget that thing's name.
I'm drawing a blank.
The Denrabi.
Oh, yeah, that fucking sea centipede goddamn thing.
Yeah.
Fuck that
after
thing.
The Denrabi is taken out, like you remember how Crocus was given a bunch of stories about Kalam and Fiddler in the Seven Cities, and it was briefly brought up about Kalam chasing Quick Ben through Raraku.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing this has something to do with I mean, and we know that Quick Ben used to be a high priest of Shadow, right? So my guess is that Kalam and Kimlock Kimlock and Quick Ben were on similar sides, or I don't even know, but something happened. Something happened here, and I'm interested to see what happens between Kimlock and Kalam here, and like what their beef is.
Just based on the rest of this chapter, I don't know if we're going to find out.
Probably not. No, but it's something to look forward to, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. I just and obviously it'll come up, but I don't know if we're really. I don't get the sense we're going to find out. There's something there, and that's kind of all that matters. Is kind of the
Right.
feeling I get.
Yeah, exactly. Um I guess it was a pretty short chapter, or not chapter, but a pretty short section, and it was very like progressive. It just kind of progresses you to the next thing. But I thought it was really interesting how Fiddler is kind of displaying a little PSD from some of the things that Apsalar did. And I think a lot of it has to do with where they are, kind of like what I mentioned at the beginning. And I just don't think that Crocus really understands. Because I'm assuming tales of Apsalar as an assassin have not been conveyed to Crocus, right? So I think that this is probably a sacrifice that Fiddler and, Whiskey Jack and Co. are keeping to themselves on behalf of Crocus. But Crocus is still kind of being a fucking ungrateful asshole. But at the same time, he doesn't know, right? So I thought that that was interesting that he's got some PSTD about Apslar not being around, and yet he is sparing that information from, I guess, her lover.
It's kind of weird to think that maybe that's what's giving him PTSD when he says he's been fighting the Empire for 15 years. He's probably seen some pretty terrible things, but this is the one that is giving him nightmares.
Right, which just adds on to the whole like the fucked up shit that Apsalar or Sorry did.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Um, you ready, Freddy?
You ready for me to start my last section here?
Yes, I am.
All right. The moon had yet to rise as Kalam headed towards Genrab, climbing over rubble and keeping low, thinking about how quiet the city was. The few Malazan patrols out in the night had the city virtually to themselves, though they seemed nervous also. It made them loud and easy for Kalam to avoid. He got to the top and looked down on Erliton. The Fist's keep rose in the darkness. For all its might, inside the military government sheltered in fear. The whole regiment that guarded the building were pulled into the barracks from their outlying forts that were placed around the edge of the city. Though the building wasn't big enough to hold the number of soldiers within, they slept wherever they could, and the water well had been fouled. They were under siege, and yet no hand had been raised against them yet. Kalam felt some confliction, as by birth he was among the occupied, but by choice chose to fight for the Empire. He fought for Kellanved, and he fought also for Desam Altor, Whiskey Jack, and Dujek, but not Lysine, because of the betrayal. He thought that the Emperor would have quelled this rebellion at the beginning. Yes, it would have been bloody, but it would have been short and followed by a long peace. But Lysine had let things rot, and what was coming would be enough to give Hood pause. Kalam walked to the tower. As he approached, he stopped to study it. Finally, he drew closer. When he was within a few steps, he heard a voice. No closer, Kalam, Makar. Kalam recognized the voice. It was Mebra. Kalam called him out as scum and said it was easy to find him and easier to follow. Mebra said he had business to get to and wanted to know why Kalam had returned and what he wanted. That his debt was with the bridge burners, but alas, they are no more. Kalam corrects him and says that his debt is with him. Mebra asks, what about the next Malazan dog with the bridge burners Seagal, and claims the debt also. Kalam closed the distance before Mebra knew it and had a knife at his chest. As he grabbed him and threw him into the wall, Kalam said, the debt, Mebra, he said, was the debt. Mebra said he was honorable and pays his debts. Kalam told him his hand that went to his knife better not move. He sees all his plans in his eyes. He asked Mebra what he saw in his own eyes. Mebra was nervous and he said he saw mercy. Kalam said that was the wrong answer. Mebra quickly spit out that he asked for mercy, not that he saw it in Kalam's eyes, but that he saw his own death in Kalam's eyes. He will repay the debt. He knows a lot of what the fist needs to know. He can deliver Erliton into his hands. Kalam shuts him up and says there is no doubt and let go of Mebra. He slid down the wall into a pitiful crouch and told him to leave the fist to his fate. Mebra recognized the situation, saying he was outlawed and no wish to return to the Malazans. Mebra blesses him for being 7 cities once again. Kalam says he only needs the signs so he can safely cross the Otan. Mebra says he knows them. Kalam says he knows the old ones. They've evolved, and he'll be killed by the first tribe he runs across. Mebra swears to him only the only symbol he needs to cross safely across all of the 7 cities. Kalam asks what the symbol is. Mebra says he is a child of Drijana, a soldier of the apocalypse. It is the whirlwind gesture. Does he remember it? Kalam was suspicious, but he knew the symbol. He asked about all the others he had seen. Mebra told him it was the best way to keep the Red Blades blind. He says he has repaid his debt, and that Kalam needs to go now. Kalam says that if he was betrayed, that Quick Ben will find him and fuck up his day. He asks again, the whirlwind? Mebra says yes, and he swears on it. Kalam tells him not to move and picks up something that Mebra had dropped earlier in the confrontation. Kalam says he will take it as a guarantee. Mebra pleads with Kalam, but he just tells him to shut the fuck up. As he unwrapped the book and saw what it was, he was surprised. From the High Fist's vault in Aaron to the hands of an early spy, does Pormqual know of the theft that will start the apocalypse? Mebra says you could take a pillow out from under his head and he wouldn't know about it. But if he takes this book, every soldier of the apocalypse will be after him. The Holy Book of Drijana has been freed and must return to Raraku, where the Cirrus will unleash the whirlwind, finishes Kalam. Kalam tells Mebra he needs to know the final secret of the book, the one that who carries the book must know. Mebra says to take him instead of the book hostage. Kalam says he will deliver it to Raraku, to the Shaikh himself, and that will guarantee a safe passage. But should he feel anyone following him, any sign, he will destroy the book. Mebra tells him he needs to ride a horse the color of the sand, or a talabara that is red. Each night he must face his trail on his knees, unwrap the book, and call upon Drijana, and that no other word that the whirlwind goddess shall obey, and that all signs of his trail shall be obliterated. Then wait an hour in silence. Wrap the book back up. Lastly, it cannot be exposed to sunlight. That belongs to the Shaikh. He is about to repeat the instructions, but Kalam tells him there is no need. Mebra asks if he really is an outlaw. Kalam says, is this not proof enough? Mebra says to deliver the book to Shaikh and he will be sung as a hero. But if he betrays the cause, his name will ride spit into dust. Kalam simply left as their interaction was now over. Mebra tried to listen as Kalam left, but he heard nothing. A few minutes later, he heard armor. Mebra asked if they saw him. The voice replied that Lostra was following him and asks if he has the book. Mebra says he could not have anticipated such a fortunate guest. That was Kalam Makar. The voice says if they had known it was him, they would have cut him down immediately. Mebra says if they had tried, Lostra and Aralt and the speaker would be dead. The soldier simply laughed. His name was Ten Baralt, and asked about the man he first approached. Mebra sighed and said that he would have needed a dozen nights like this, but, alas, he cannot believe their luck. Ten asks if he prepared Kalam with the proper instructions. Mebra says they will be able to track Kalam, but to take extra caution. If Kalam suspects anything, the book will be destroyed. Best to stay about a day behind, but he will lead them to Shaik's camp. Mebra says they will need an army to kill the Shaik. The Red Blade smiled and said that was their concern, not his. Mebra asked for one favor, that Kalam lives. The commander says his face is uneven, and he will give him a scar on the other side of his face to balance things out. Mebra asks to be heard out. He thinks Kalam has a different purpose. He is meant to lead, but can a leader be content to follow? He takes the book for safe passage across the Panpots and Odhan. He is heading south, but why? He thinks that's something the Red Blades and the Empire would like to know, and they can't know what his plan is if he's dead. Mebra has a suspicion he's going to Aaron. The commander thinks to kill the High Fist. No, Mebra says. Kalam doesn't give a shit about Pormcall. No, he can only think of one thing. A ship bound for Malaz. A long moment passed, and Ten asked what Mebra planned. Though it cost him, Mebra smiled.
So, going back to the traders' camp and the Mesla and the spies, this is totally what Mebra is.
A spy?
He's a spy. Yeah.
He's a scummy piece of shit, isn't he?
He is a scummy piece of shit. Because he totally... It kind of sounds like this was all set up. Although he didn't anticipate it to be Kalam.
Right.
He was totally setting up somebody, a warrior of the apocalypse, so that they could be followed to Shaik, which I'm pretty sure is a girl.
I think so.
I don't remember.
We've had hints at that, and I think that's the case.
Okay. Yeah, the summary made me doubt because you had himself and he.
Oh, did I fuck that up?
Yeah, not as bad as our very first episode.
What happened? I don't even remember what happened way back then, 30-odd episodes ago.
You just listened to it.
Dude, I'm on like episode 4.
D&J's Epic Adventure?
Oh. You dick. Shut up.
Yeah, I'm being a real ass lick, aren't I?
A little bit. No, you're good, man.
Okay.
I'm up to episode 16, thank you.
Oh, okay. Still going okay?
Yep.
Is it making you laugh?
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Okay, good. I think I'm going to start listening to it on my way to work.
Yeah, it's a good idea. That's what I do.
Yeah. But yeah, what a fucking section, dude.
It was pretty intense. I probably didn't do a very good job, but yeah, Kalam, he's kind of sneaking along the city, and you get the sense he's tracking this guy down, and he kind of catches up to him, and they've got a little confrontation, and they've got a little spat, and then suddenly basically throws him against the fucking wall. He's got a knife to his chest.
Right. And then just happens to hear the book fall, right?
Right, yeah. But then it also kind of seems like, well, Mebra kind of planned this out a little bit, but just not with the intent for Kalam to be the guy that found him.
Right, yeah. And all Kalam is really doing is he's just trying to seek passage through, basically the desert without being harmed. So, and unintentionally he gets a safeguard as well,
I don't think it's going to play out that way. I mean, it seems that way right now, but I don't think that's going to be what it is. I think it's probably going to end up in being a burden of sorts. I don't think it's going to be the guarantee that he thinks it is.
Well, I mean, the instructions Mebra gives him are bullshit, right?
As far like, you know what it reminded me a lot of is, and I'm certainly no religious like scholar, but it felt a lot of like the Muslim religion where they got to, where they pray like 5 days to the east, or however it goes.
Yeah.
That's kind of the sense that I got a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
did they really make any sense, for him to, oh, you need to do this, pray back, for your path to be covered? Yeah, it kind of seems like bullshit.
Well, I mean, it's bullshit, and it's so that the red swords or the red blades can follow.
It buys him a little bit of time.
Right. Yeah. It allows them to, yeah, essentially follow. Right.
But I thought that was interesting because they've always, unless these are two different entities, they've been called red swords up until that section, and now they're red blades. Did you catch that?
Right. I did catch that.
Okay. I thought that was interesting, so I don't really know what to make of that.
You think that it was maybe just like an author's choice to just have them have named the two different things, but they're the same group?
I don't know that that makes any sense. I mean, why would you change the name all of a sudden?
Yeah, but then I mean, who are these red blades?
I I don't know. Are they like uber religious sect of the Red Swords or something? I don't know.
Maybe, or they're a but I mean, from what I understand, the red swords are they're like unhealthily loyal to Empress Lucine. So it wouldn't make sense for them to have like an insurrection within themselves because they both essentially have the same goal. Or maybe this is just a like a different faction of the Red Swords where they are serving this particular purpose is to seek out Shaik, where the other Red Swords are uh basic guard duty, kind of like the different branches of the government, or not the branches of the government, but branches of the military, excuse me, you know.
Yeah, I feel like there's some intent between the name change. Whatever it is, it just I I feel like Erickson's a smart enough writer to, like, he just didn't mistakenly make that switch.
Right. Yeah. Huh. Well, if we don't ever get an answer, maybe we ask him about that if we ever get the opportunity to interview him. We'll put that on our list.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Um, yeah, I guess I mean, I feel like the section was very, very straightforward with the purpose of introducing us to, this spy, um, and kind of moving Kalam through his progression here. But the only other thing that I can think of is, at the beginning of the section, he kind of talks about like his past and again the history thing. He makes a statement that, or he thinks that what Kellenved could have squashed this rebellion at the beginning, but and then a bunch of peace would have ensued after that. But it kind of sounds like, if I'm reading this correctly, Lucine kind of took out Kellenved before this rebellion could even be quelled, so to speak, and just kind of left, like, Empress Lucine just left things to fester, because it kind of sounds like the seven cities before they were conquested potentially still had maybe these rumors of uh the apocalypse, right? Or Dryjana, rebellion. It's not really specifically said who exactly the seven cities was rebelling against. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if I really got anything to add to it, but yeah.
I just thought that was interesting, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you?
yeah, and
Sorry,
sorry.
this is gonna sound like uh, a tangent, But do you ever
That's all right.
read a character and then just like think of who they remind you of? Because like Mebra, you see the Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser,
Yeah, yep. I
and
know where you're going.
and the like Middle Eastern guy that's
Benny.
Ben, yeah, like that's who I thought Mebra was.
Oh, kind of.
And I hope that doesn't like come across poorly, but that's just kind of like sometimes you just get like a sense, and so like even coming up like I get with Icarium and Mappo and they're later on like I get a sense of somebody else with that, and we can talk about that later. But yeah, I don't know. Not even no, it's not Benny. It's the like merchant guy in that movie. Like
Oh,
like the he's kind of a God. I'm gonna sound like an asshole. He's kind of the bigger guy, but like the merchant type guy. I don't remember his name.
um, he was in the first one,
God, give
like
me
the
like
museum curator,
um, give me a
the
second.
one who sticks his hand in the thing to unlock it. Maybe that's the second one.
God damn. I'm trying to
Yeah,
like
I
Google it
guess
quick. I don't know, but
maybe you just have to send me a picture of it.
yeah, Benny's not the guy that I was thinking of. It's like the guy who, I feel like the guy selling carpets or whatever the fuck he was doing. I don't remember what he was doing.
Jonathan.
No, no, that's
The
the
brother?
cousin or whatever. No, this was like a
Yeah,
like a Middle Eastern descent guy, but he was a little bit more round shaped.
yeah. I guess I don't know.
Then he was I mean, I was fucking afraid of the scarab beetles, and he was too. Like those things fucking just give me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you'll have to send me a picture. I'm drawing a blank as to who you're trying to describe.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'll do some digging, but God, that sounds bad. It's just not. Yeah, I sound like.
I mean, you could have used other language to describe his
Oh,
physique.
thank you. Just make me sound more of an asshole, Justin.
I'm trying to assure you
You're
that you could
doing
have chosen.
you're doing quite the opposite. Thank you.
Oh, dude, no, no. You could have said fat ass. You could have said tub of lard. You could have said literally anything under the stars. Uh, and you said rounder man. I don't know how much more PC you could have gotten.
I thought you were wanting to be more PC. No? He was a fat
I
fuck,
mean,
Justin. Is that better for you?
okay. I'm sure we've caught crap worse.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm googling it and I can't see. I don't know. I'm gonna have to fucking watch the movie quick to see who it was.
Well, don't do it now.
No, it won't be now. Anyways, moving on. I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I should pull again more out from this section, but I feel like it was pretty straightforward. The only other thing that I'm curious about is what Mebra has planned. Um, even though it sounds like he got slapped like a little bitch as he smiled about it, but yeah, I'm curious as to what they're planning.
I mean, they're gonna follow Kalam, but I mean, how I don't know that it's gonna turn out well.
Well, I mean, they don't know about the convergence, or maybe they do, but I mean, I would imagine that like shit's not gonna go according to plan. Anybody's plan, really.
Yeah, it never does, right? I think you're
No.
100% right on that.
All right. Well, I mean, did you have any other lasting thoughts for your last section here?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, this one is another longer one, so I guess sit back, relax, and yeah. The cliffs towered over the sand 400 arm spans. The cliffside face and fissures running up and down. Within the largest fissure was a tower, 150 arm spans above the sand. Mappo sighs and asks Icarium that he doesn't see an obvious approach, but there has to be one. Mappo turns to his friend and asks if he thinks it's occupied. Icarium was rubbing the crusted blood from his brow and looking at the flesh that hung from his sword halfway out of the scabbard. While resting for the night, they had been attacked by a dozen Deahouse leopards, the color of sand. Mappo and Icarium were able to defeat the Deahouse. After the encounter, the two quickly gathered up their camp and traveled the rest of the night. Icarium had left an arrow in the sand as a warning to others that may follow or smell the blood of the slain Deahouse. Dawn had brought them to the eastern side of Raraku, and now faced the mountains dividing Raraku and Panpatsan Odin. Mappo had sensed a large soul taken an hour earlier, and knew it had ignored the arrow and was indeed following them. While stringing his bow, Icarium tells Mappo to try and find them in a scent. Icarium had laid out the remainder of his arrows. With the shimmering heat of the day, if the soul taken came into view, Icarium would have plenty of time to loose a dozen arrows. Icarium's expression made it seem he was sickened by the thought. Mappo had sustained a bite wound from the Deahouse leopard's attack. He squeezed a blade of Jagura cactus into his wounds. Mappo went inside this fissure to see if there was a way to reach the tower. He found the back wall and couldn't find any rope or stairs or handholds. Growling in frustration at not finding anything, he goes back outside. When he does, he sees Icarium with his bow notched and ready to fire. 30 paces away was a massive brown bear. The soul taken had arrived. Mappo joins Icarium and tells him that this one is known to him. Icarium lowers his bowstring and tells Mappo that the soul taken is sembling. With the change, Mappo could smell the strong, spicy change, and dryness in his throat that made it hard to swallow. A moment later, the semblance was complete, and a naked man walked towards them. Mesremb approached and greeted Mappo. As Mesremb's nose had told him it was Mappo he smelled, Mappo tells Mesrem that it's been a long time. Mesrem and Mappo converse about memories and days past, and then Mesrem focuses his attention on Icarium. Mesrem announces that this must be Icarium, the maker of mechanisms and now the bane of Deahouse and Soul Taken. Mesrem goes on to tell Icarium that he appreciated when the bow was lowered, as his heart was about to thump out of his chest. Icarium tells him that he is bane to no one, as they were attacked suddenly. Mesrem continues to say that the pair were unable to give warning to who they were. Mesrem then explains that his nose lures him into things before considering the danger. What scent was that alongside the trowel? Mesrem wondered that he smelled so close to Jaghut blood, but yet different somehow. Now that he has seen it, he can continue on this path. Mappo asks where it will take Mesrem, and all Mesrem could respond with was, "Have you seen the gates?" Mappo tells him no, and asks what Mesrem will look to find there. Mesrem replies by saying that he hopes to find answers, and that he should be going. Mappo wishes him well, and gives warning that they ran into Rylanderus a few nights ago. Mesrem says that he'll keep an eye out, and then makes his exit, waiting to veer back into a ferocious beast when he was out of sight from the Trell and the Jag. Icarium tells his friend that the madness lurked within him. Mappo agrees and elaborates that there is madness in all of them. Mappo changes the subject and tells his companion that he couldn't find a way up the tower. Just then, the sound of hooves reached their ears. From a trail parallel to the cliff face, a man on a black mule appeared. He sat cross-legged on a wood saddle, his face hidden within a hood. The mule was a strange-looking beast, no light reflecting from its ebon hue. The only thing apparent was dust and potentially some dried blood. The man spoke as they approached closer. Hissing, he says, "No way in, but the way out is not yet the hour. A life given for a life taken. Remember those words." He observes that the pair are wounded and bright with infection. He tells the pair that his servant will attend to them, a caring man with salty hands, one wrinkled and one pink. The man asks the pair if they know the significance of that. Not yet. He goes into saying that so few guess, but alas, he had been expecting the pair. The mule stops and the man attempts to uncross his legs. In attempting to do so, he loses his balance and topples to the ground. Seeing crimson bleed through the traveler's talaba, Mappo steps forward and says that the traveler bears his own wounds. The man on the ground, hood fell off the head, revealing his features. The man was like an upended turtle with his legs still crossed. Mappo investigates the red and finds an unstoppered bladder. Mappo turns to Icarium and informs him that it isn't blood, it's red paint. Snapping the man on the ground, yells at Mappo to help him untwist his legs, with some wincing and pain while Mappo unties the man's legs. Once complete, the man is sitting, hitting his thighs. He yells for wine to be brought to him. Mappo tells him to fuck off as he is not his servant. The man says not you, but his servant to bring him wine. Mappo follows the man's gaze to that of the mule. Mappo is probably thinking that this dude is a crazy motherfucker. The man grabs some sand and throws it at the mule. The mule starts to walk into the fissure. The man stands, wobbling, and then finally gaining balance, speaks what I imagine as his thoughts. He's sounding more and more crazy, and he rambles about the rudest of greetings and that they were actually meant to be rude. Meaningless apologies were to follow, and so does and so he would have more practice if he wasn't the master of this temple. Just then a wide-shouldered, bow-legged man walked out of the fissure within the rock face, carrying a tray with a jug and clay cups. His face was veiled of any features. The man barking orders calls him a lazy fool and then asks if he saw any cobwebs. The man replies, "None is Carel." The servant's accent caught Mappo by surprise as it was clearly Malazan. The man replies, "Wrong, and to call him by his proper title." The servant says the title High Priest is Carel, host of the Tessem Temple of Shadow. Iscaral calls him an idiot again and tells him that he is a servant. The servant replies, "Master." Iscaral turns to Mappo and explains that they rarely talk. Icarium joins them and tells Iscaral that he thought this was a monastery sanctified by the Queen of Dreams. Snapping at Icarium, Iscaral tells him that they had left and took their lanterns with them, leaving only. Icarium finishes the sentences by saying shadows. Iscaral replies by saying that the Jog was clever. Jahag. But he was warned of that. He continues on to say that they both are sick as undercooked pigs, and that his servant has prepared their chambers, broths of healing herbs, roots, potions, and elixirs. White Peralt, Emulor, and then Mappo interjects that those are poisons. Caral replies by saying, "Well, that must be why the pig died," and says, "Well, shall we ascend?" Icarium simply says, "Lead the way." Iscaral says a life given for a life taken, and to follow him. After some awkward silence, Mappo asks if Escaral's acolytes will lower down a ladder. Iscaral responds that he doesn't have any acolytes, no opportunity for tyranny. He rants some more about this concept and ends by telling the pair he wouldn't bother, and to be assured of that and hopes that they will take that into account with all he's done and about to do. Icarium says that he sees movement in the fissure. Iskarel grunts and tells them that they are Boak Ralala and that they are his plague. From the window in the tower, a head popped out and a knotted rope fell down. Iskarel says that however much they trouble him, some can be useful. Mapple sighs as he was hoping for some type of sorcery to make their ascent. He asks if they climb. Carell replies with indignation that his servant climbs and then pulls him up. Mapple is confused as it would take formidable strength to pull himself and Icarium up. At this point, the servant put down the tray and spat on his hands, and headed towards the rope and launched himself up with surprising agility. Iscaral sat down next to the tray and poured wine into the 3 cups. Iscaral admits that his servant is half Bokharala with long arms and muscles like iron. Servant makes friends with them and is likely the reason for his ills with the Boakrala. Iskaral checks on his servant's progress and tells him to hurry the fuck up. The servant had already reached the room and was climbing into the tower. Iskaral explains to Mappo and Icarium that servant was a gift from Amanus, a life given for a life taken, one hand old, one hand new. The rope twitched and the priest drank the rest of the wine. Complaining about not being pulled up right away, quickly ascends upwards. Icarium says pulleys, as it was too fast to be otherwise. Mappo winced from the pain in his shoulders, asks Icarium if it was not what he was expecting. Icarium says Tessem, a place of healing, of solitary reflection, repository of scrolls and tomes. Mappo suggests that such things have driven Iskarel insane. The rope toppled back down. Icarium tells Mappo that there is power here. The Trell agreed as he explains that a warren was opened here when the mule entered. Icarium asks why the high priest didn't use it. Mappo tells his friends that they might not find the answers to that. Mappo says that they better hold on tight. Before ascending, Icarium asks Mappo why he's missing an arrow and that there's blood on his sword. He asks Mappo if there was a fight or if they were in a fight, as he doesn't recall. Mappo tells his friends that while Icarium slept, he was bested by leopards and used Icarium's weapons while he slept. Icarium appeared dismayed and whispered that he had lost time again. Mappo, trying to reassure his friend, tells him that it wasn't any time lost that was worth it. Icarium, with a look of desperation, asks his friend if he would tell him otherwise. Mappo responds with, "Why would he not?" What a section.
I really liked this one.
Yeah, it was definitely confusing at first.
The whole time reading it, Iskarol, I felt like was Professor Farnsworth from Futurama with like ADHD.
And more cynical.
But like that's just who I imagined. Like it
No,
makes
I mean
sense
that's
to me.
fair, yeah. I totally get that.
Like I could
So-
just imagine him yelling at the mule, like, "Go get me my wine!"
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of like some crazy and some madness with this character. And I guess is he some type of de-Iver as well? Because they talked about um in your section with Kinlock. I already forgot his name.
You're right.
Kinslock.
Kimlock.
With Kimlock and Fiddler, how there's a level of insanity or submadness, right? That was in that section, wasn't it? No, it was in this section after the whole Misremb conversation. Icarium could sense some type of madness. So I'm wondering if like Iskarel is maybe a de-Iver or a soul taken of some kind.
He's gotta be. I mean, he's gotta be.
All right, because he just appears out of fucking nowhere.
One, he was a bear and turned into a man.
Oh, I'm talking about Iskarel being a de-Iver or a soul taken.
Yeah. but he,
Oh, okay.
yeah, he was a bear and then assembled into a human, right? Or yeah, it was him.
No, I'm talking about mess. I'm talking about Iskarel, the shadow, the high priest of shadow.
Am I mixing up with somebody else?
Yeah, Miss Rem was the one who
Oh,
was the brown bear
sorry.
that had followed them. No, 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 you're cool. Um, I almost feel like that part wasn't really necessary in this section, but I feel like it's just for because they know each other,
I feel like
you know.
servant must be the one who's a diver or soul taken.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but I'm just speaking to the whole is Carell being a little bit insane, kind of going back to your Professor Farnsworth there.
Yeah, he's fucking crazy as shit.
Yeah, but I guess do you think it's because he is a de-iver himself or a soul taken himself, or is it just a different type of insanity?
I don't know. I think I kind of feel like it's because he's been stuck in the fucking desert with a donkey for who knows how long.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm leaning towards as well. But I just I think it's funny, and I feel like the as far as the de-ivers and the soul taken go, I feel like it has something to do like the convergence has something to do with this madness. Like if they were to ascend or best everyone else and go into this path of hands, so to speak, that they will no longer be mad. Like they'll have their not only like rule and conquer over all of their kind, they won't be crazy anymore, you know?
It's interesting.
So, and also, uh, I didn't summarize it because it would have added so much more to already a lengthy section. But just the battle scene, uh, with Mappo and Icarium and these De-Iver leopards was really cool to read. Like he gets basically jumped on and it's described that Mappo is just like so muscular that the bite and the teeth from the leopards didn't even pierce all the way through his muscles. And like Icarium knocked out pretty much the entire clan with his sword and his bow. And then Mappo like swings a fucking leopard like in Mario 64 where he swings Bowser at the bombs. Um yeah, it was just a really cool scene and I had to cut corners somewhere and it's pretty easy to talk about conflicts and fights and stuff.
So one thing I've been wondering about. So we know divers can like split themselves into like multiple, I guess, animals, right?
Yep.
So if you kill one of them, what happens? Does the diver lose a little bit of themselves, like 1/6 of themselves, or however many there are? Does it lose a little bit of themselves, or does it just kind of become absorbed into the remaining ones? Like, is it of no consequence, or does it matter?
I think it does. And I think we already might have an answer to this.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, do you want to hear this crazy theory?
I would love to.
Hounds of Shadow. That they have to be de-ivers.
Why do you think that?
I mean, it can't be. I mean, those are the only type of de-ivers that are essentially mentioned in Gardens of the Moon. Even though they're not called de-ivers, I think that they are either a Manus or Cotillion or some other servant of shadow is more or less acting on behalf of the hounds, you know, or have split up the hounds. And when Animander Rake kills two of them, I think that in some way, shape, or form that has weakened Shadow Throne.
I kind of thought that shadow hounds were kind of there. Each one was just kind of its own thing, but I mean, you could be right.
I think that's the way that like they're trying to play it off, or he's trying to play it off. But I have a sneaky suspicion that they're Deivers. I don't know why. I don't know how. There's nothing that really like alludes to that outside of the fact that they are hounds of shadow. I mean, we don't get that anywhere else. So, I mean, I guess it just makes sense. Makes sense to me. So it's very possible that we meet the hounds because they might be lured to this convergence, you know? And I mean, also, let's look at the cover of this book. What do those look like?
Dogs.
Right. Big dogs.
I don't know if I don't know if I'm 100% sold on you, Justin. There might be something
Well, I
we
mean,
differ on.
why else would Shadow Throne be out here? They've got their own fucking Deivers. They can totally best anybody out here and essentially, either make the hounds themselves ascendants or the Deiver that is the hounds an ascendant. I mean, it's one more thing for Shadow Throne to just be able to unleash on whoever the fuck they want to. Just saying. Could very well be wrong, but I got a sneaky suspicion that the Hounds of Shadow are involved in this convergence somehow.
All right.
Because Shadow Throne is out here. I mean, it's possible that they could just like recruit the winner, but I mean, if they already have somebody who can contest anybody, why not use that? That should be their play. Just saying.
We'll let it ride for now.
Okay. Another thing. Okay, moving on. We'll move to this lowly little Jagura cactus. I thought it was cool that you can only use it once a day. So basically, Mappo is using this on the wound where he got bit. And the Jagura cactus, you have to use it once a day because if you do it more, the numbing effect could spread to the heart and lungs.
Yeah, you put
I just
yourself
thought that
into
was
fucking cardiac arrest.
right.
Sounds great.
Yeah. I also thought it was really cool to get a little bit more about like Trell. Trells are plane dwellers. So Mappo goes into this fissure not even really confident to begin with because plains and cliffs are opposite spectrums,
Yeah.
So I just thought it was cool just to get that little smidgen. Yeah. But when Miss Remb approaches them as the brown bear, I envisioned like the bear in the movie Prey,
That's sweet.
Yeah. Tie that into our little side quest there.
That was fun.
That was fun.
Just on a side note, Dave, who we had on, he is done with his show as far as like the alien side goes. They're going to kind of rebrand and be on more of like a horror side of things, horror movies.
Oh.
So, God damn it, why am I blanking on what the hell he's called? You remember what the show's called?
No, I do not.
Xenomorphing.
There it is.
Xenomorphing is done, and they will be something else now, yet to be determined.
To be DD. That's cool. I did not know that. Well, good luck to him.
For sure.
Does a life given for a life taken? Does that mean anything to you, Mr. Derek? Do you think that has anything to do with your theory?
Yeah, it just draws me back to Prime a lot. Gnos.
Yeah.
All I could think about reading that was just Gnos for whatever reason.
Gotcha.
His life was, he was given his life back, and I still feel like it's going to be Phyllis and her life's going to be taken at some point.
Yeah. I also feel like it has something to do with Servant as well. Because, it's Carell, is Carral. There we go. That's how I'm going to say it. He asks Icarium and Mappo if he knows the significance of the fact that Servant has one wrinkled hand and one pink. So I'm assuming that he's got an old man's hand and a baby hand.
It's a baby holding an apple.
Right, exactly.
I'm disgusting.
A little bit, yes. Yes, just a little bit. Naughty, naughty, naughty.
I didn't know what to make of that point, though.
I mean, I can only assume it means, you know, either a very fleshy hand, like maybe there's no skin on it, and it's just like kind of that like pinkish muscle and fibers and stuff, or if it was like a baby hand, And I think what he's trying to do here, and we'll touch on it a little bit later as we wrap up this section, but I think that he's trying to say that he's got an old hand and he's got a baby hand or like a new hand, So it may not necessarily mean like a small baby hand, like you'd find in Deadpool. I feel like that's maybe just a little too abstract, but hey, it's all within the realm of possibilities, right? But I think he's just trying to convey new hand.
Okay. Yeah, I kept thinking like, what the fuck is this supposed to represent? And I couldn't come up with anything.
Yeah. But I thought it was kind of going a little bit back to the madness thing. Just throughout this chapter, how fucking crazy he sounds, like he's expecting them, and then he asks his servant if there's cobwebs, and then going back to them like being expecting them, and how there was rudeness and the rudeness was meant to be there, but yet there's supposed to be some formality of apologies, but he wasn't going to do it. You know what I mean? Like you can really get the sense of how crazy this motherfucker is. And even with like the whole like healing herbs, roots, potions, and elixirs, like Mappo's like, wait a minute, those are poisons. Those aren't going to help us. Those are poisons. Like, what are you trying to do here, dude?
Yeah, just goes back to the crazy side.
Right. And I mean, even which brings me up to kind of like my next point, the Boca Arala, they're described as like
The fucking bat thing.
bat-like creatures. Yeah, they're like tailless bat creatures, which apparently, is Carral goes into great detail about them interfering, shitting on his pillows. But the fact that he hasn't tried to like poison them or cook their brains or anything like that, I just thought that was funny, but just kind of played off to the nuisance that he's trying to describe
I will tell you why,
of them.
It's because they weren't his soft pillows.
Oh, yeah. I don't want any hot Carls. I'm good.
Can I go on a tangent here?
Go for it, man.
All right. So last night,
Oh, God.
Wednesday, November 9th, we went to play trivia at Rounders, downtown Mankato,
Yep.
with so Kelly's coworkers, and then one of her coworkers brought her dad, who's like later 60s. And he's like, I just found out what a rusty trombone is. That's all I've got.
Okay, was this like in a trivia question?
I don't even remember how it came
what
up.
Is a rusty trombone?
I don't remember how it came up, but it did.
I mean, yeah, it just means you haven't had sex in a while.
I had to like Google it I didn't remember what it was. Maybe you do because you're a pervert. I don't know.
Oh, what are you trying to say here, man? You're fighting words. People listen to this, man.
You're into some kinky shit. I don't know.
I mean, maybe back in the day, but not so much now. I'm revealing too much about myself.
It was funny because, so other than her coworker's dad, Kelly and I were the oldest ones there. Everybody else was early 20s to mid 20s, and then there's us in our, I guess I'm mid 30s. Kelly's early 30s, and then her coworker's dad, who was close to 70.
Fair enough.
Sorry for the tangent.
No, it was great. That was hilarious. I wish we could incorporate rusty trombone, but I mean, the only thing
I'm gonna try to now. God damn it! Maybe not this episode, but somewhere along the way.
If only there was a bone phone in here somewhere. Then it could be the rusty bone phone.
The rusty trombone phone.
Yeah, there you go. The rusty trombone phone. Okay, cool. Well, we've only got a couple more things that I want to touch on, and then we can wrap this chapter up. So it was said that servant was a gift from Amanus, and we know Amanus is the more or less the king of Shadow Throne, right?
Right.
A life given for a life taken, one hand old, one hand new. He says this a lot throughout this section, and this is probably totally just another theory. But again, he keeps saying the life given for life taken thing. So in the first section, Culp and Duiker talk about Malazan leaders of Kellenved disappearing. So what if Shadow Throne found their souls and reincarnated them as like torment? I guess we don't know much about like their descriptions, but if he has one hand new and one hand old, it just seems too obvious. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. I guess for some reason that is what my mind is going to. Is like, did they find a way to somehow be reincarnated or soul shifted from, because he was clearly Malazan. I mean, that was something that Mappo picked up on as far as like an accent was concerned. But I think that there's something there. I think that there's something there.
I don't know. My mind still goes to Gnos with the whole life given for life taken. I don't know about the others.
Gotcha. You think it's pretty far fetched?
I don't know that I would say that, but I'm just not sure that I feel like I'm convinced yet.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
I guess I'm saying you could be onto something, but I don't know if I'm on board yet.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Just wanted to make it known that I think that there's definitely something there. I
You
mean,
could
Amanus.
be 100% right.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just a little slower to the take, but
The one of the last two things here that I wanted to mention is Carell. He, after he topples like a dumbass off his mule, um, Mappo sees, basically uncovers like a thing full of red paint. So I'm pretty sure I'm more confident than not that this is the guy who is putting the handprints all over the town.
I didn't really think
Like I
about that,
think
I guess. But do you think he
I
was
mean,
the
why else
only
would you
one
talk
doing that?
about red paint?
Yeah.
What's that?
Do you think he was the only one doing it though?
Probably not.
But he
I mean, I'm
okay.
sure not, but I mean, I think that he was more than likely probably having his servant fly, right? Like clearly he can, shift into these bat-like creatures or is part bat creature himself. And I think that that is what they're doing. I think that they are telling people about the convergence that know how to speak that language or know what that symbol particularly means. Kalam doesn't understand the handprint, but Fiddler informs him because of Kimlock. Kimlock was able to decipher that. So there's a lot of things that are like connecting together between each of these sections, and while they are not yet fleshed out, I definitely feel that in some way, shape, or form, Shadow Throne is doing something with this convergence.
Yeah, I definitely could have a hand. I just feel like everything's so hard to say right now because it's all just kind of just everywhere.
Right, right. Yeah, there's so many things um, just kind of beginning to kind of move and gain momentum,
Yeah.
But I guess I'm gonna end this section with how sad it was for me to read how frequently or how frequent Icarium's memory loss seems to be,
Yeah,
because he
that really hit hard, didn't it?
it did it did it really did.
because man, I read that and I was just like, fuck, like that sucks so hard.
It did. Yeah, it did. It really did suck. And I mean, what else is going to happen that he forgets? And I'm wondering, is this maybe just like advanced stages of madness? Like maybe he is a de-iver as well. I mean, he's clearly motivated to get to this gate. He's clearly motivated to beat everybody else. Like maybe he's just been. I don't even know. I don't. I'm probably wrong on that one too. But I mean, it seems to tie in.
But then you also see how, like, I'm picking up that Mappo's afraid that he's gonna turn on him because, like, oh, well, how far gone is he? Is he gonna remember me? He could just fucking kill Mappo because he doesn't know who he is. He could just think he's some bad guy.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And so, yeah, man, like it sucked to read. Just like, oh god, like this guy's obviously done a lot of like cool shit and like amazing things throughout his years on the planet, and now his memory is spotty as fuck, really.
Right. Yeah. It was definitely it left me feeling pretty sad when I
For
finished
sure,
this chapter.
definitely, yeah, I totally agree.
But yeah, I guess outside of that, I didn't really have anything else to say about this weird section.
I don't think I had anything additional to add beyond what we covered. I think I had, my questions. Like what happens if you kill 1/6 of a diver, that type of deal. Those are the kind of things I'm wondering about right now. But maybe we'll see what happens. I guess, does the diver's soul just go back into the remaining ones that are alive, or is that part gone? That type of deal. I'm not sure, but maybe we'll find out.
Maybe it's like Anakin Skywalker's pod racer that the other fuel just gets redistributed to the other engine,
Sure.
even though that one engine can't be used again. I don't know. Yeah,
Hard to say.
hard to say. But yeah, I thought it was a great chapter. Definitely my favorite so far. Lot, lots of good shit. Lots of fucked up shit. Lots of good stuff. Good conversation.
For
Good
sure.
progression. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, uh, man, this episode took us 3 nights to record. Um, Man, this episode's probably going to be like 3-4 hours long, right? Eh, And really, even our first night we recorded 2.5 hours, and then we just scrapped it because it was, I mean, it was problems on my end. It was problems with the internet, but we had a ton of problems, and so today is November 10th. We started would be what, November like 6th, something like
Yeah,
that,
3 days ago. Yeah.
recording, and just a shitload of problems. Recorded the next day. So this is really day 3 of recording for this one episode. Um,
Yep. So I mean probably about 5 or 6 hours total just to record this episode. But
I,
yeah, just the first take at it just did not sound like us, and yeah. So I'm glad that we redid it.
I am too. It was a good call on your part. It was the right thing to do, and we'll be fine time wise. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was this one was kind of a monster. It was kind of a battle to get through, but I'm sure we're gonna have other chapters like this where it's just a beast. This one was probably the biggest beast we've tackled so far.
You're not wrong. Yep, it is the longest summary, so it takes a trophy for that. As well as I would imagine that this is probably going to be about a 3.5 hour episode. Um, it's going to be our longest episode as well, so it'll take the trophy for that as well. But I mean, really, it's only an extra 45 minutes on top of our longest. Our longest was almost 3 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I feel like there's a lot of information in here that will hopefully help viewers and readers get through this chapter.
Yeah, there definitely was a lot. it was a lot of fun to read, and as always, I have a lot of fun talking to you about this. And even though it was kind of broken up across a couple days, it didn't feel like clunky to me.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
So we had just to give you guys an idea, we had a 13-page Google document for everything to cover this chapter, and I I don't know, what would you say our normal is? Like 3 to 4 pages, maybe 5.
Yeah, tops eight. 8 pages is probably our absolute tops. But yeah, 5 to 6 pages, I'd say.
So this is like basically double. It was huge. Um, so hopefully things come across good, but I think we'll
Well,
be all
right,
right.
and it was yeah, they were huge and long summaries, but also there was a lot of new information, like every other sentence. So it was like, which ones do you talk about, which ones do you pick out? Again, there's definitely a lot of things that we probably didn't cover just because we didn't have enough time, or it would have taken, yeah, at least 3 parts to do this chapter, and we just I don't want to have 3 episodes pertaining to one chapter. So I
Yeah,
feel like that would be a little jarring.
yeah, and I mean, I guess who knows, down the road maybe we have to do something like that, but for this, a couple nights we made it work, and I think it's going to turn out good.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I guess with that we'll cap off the end of our 3-day recording sesh and get the fuck to sleep.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would add, I've got probably 4, 5, 6 podcasts that I listen to pretty regularly, and I try to pick up things from each one of them to incorporate into what we do. So one thing I'm going to steal from another show that I listen to that I like a lot. If you're into the Alien cinematic universe, um, definitely check out A Perfect Organism. They've got a ton of content. I think they're over 200 episodes. Um, but the last one that I listened to, they said, if you enjoyed listening to us, tell somebody about it. Tell one person. So I guess I would echo that. If you enjoyed listening to us, help us out, get the word out, tell one person, tell 2 people, tell more than that. Um, I, I love what we do. I think you do. It's why we're still doing it 2 books into this. And I know we've said it before, but we're in this for the long haul and want to keep doing this. But help us spread the word. Um, I don't know if you've seen any reviews come through or anything like that, but give us a review, even if it's shit. give us a review, so we can improve on things. Or if you're loving what we do, tell us that you're loving what we do, because we would love to get that feedback.
Yes, yes, constructive criticism as well as some positive affirmation. And also we like to engage with you guys. So yeah,
Yeah, and
I guess
also I don't know if we've had a Twitter update in a little bit, but we're up to 209 Twitter followers, so we're over 200, which is pretty fucking cool. Um, I know YouTube has been growing. You've been getting some comments and feedback on that, and I love seeing that. It's really cool.
yeah, we're after we did the prologue episode, after that got uploaded, I would say within a week we had gained 10 more subscribers. So I know that that's probably nothing to some of those bigger YouTube stars, but like we're pretty impressed with that. That's amazing. We're up to 40 now.
Yeah, that's cool as hell.
With a week ago we were at 29.
So
So
yeah. Also,
so
be on the lookout. I would think tomorrow we'll probably have our episode dropping here pretty quick. When we were on Smiley's podcast, it was a lot of fun to record. I think that'd be coming pretty quick.
yes. I can't wait to listen to that.
Me too.
Yeah. But all right, man. I think it's time to say goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen. I don't even know how that song goes.
I don't know what
But
the fuck you're talking about. So,
okay, never mind. Cool. Well, uh, have a good night, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
all right. Have a good night. Take care.
Later, dude.
Bye.
Bye.